Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Rinnegan Naruto destroys Konoha part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto watched cautiously as Nagato trembled with sweat on his brow, eyes shut tight, head bowed, and hands held in the serpent's seal. His hair had changed from a deep, dark red to white, and he looked as though he was on death's door, more so than he was before. Naruto hadn't seen anyone in this bad of shape since he dragged Sasuke back from the Valley of the End, and he and Sasuke had both taken a pretty thorough beating from one another. Nagato's blue-haired companion, Konan, only looked on, an expression of worry painted on her normally stoic face. Naruto knew he had just performed a taxing jutsu, but he wasn't sure what it did or why the woman seemed to be concerned. What just happened? What was that jutsu? He asked. The woman spoke, her voice calm despite her concerned expression. Geto, Rinne Tensei no Jutsu. The blonde looked at her with a confused expression. Nagato's ocular power is one that can govern life and death, she continued. Naruto's eyes widened as he began to understand. You don't mean he trailed off? Konan averted her gaze to the ground. The villagers that were killed will be revived, one after another, she spoke placidly, though her face and eyes betrayed a sense of sorrow. Nagato held the hand seal as he raised his head and opened his eyes slowly. Naruto watched as those purple-ringed eyes focused intensely on him. Nagato spoke in a tired voice. I'm still in time to revive those I've killed since arriving in Konoha. It's the least I can do for them. Naruto only stared at Nagato incredulously. The man who sat in a machine that let him control the 6 bodies he had defeated earlier, the very same man who was responsible for so much death and the destruction of his home, was now saving everyone whose lives he had cut short. Though Naruto's blood was boiling, he felt relieved that those same people would be back. He couldn't help but feel a small amount of gratitude, but he didn't show it. Nagato released the hand seal. His breathing was labored, but he somehow mustered the strength to speak. War inflicts death, injury, and pain to both sides. The death of someone dear is hard to accept. We convince ourselves that there's no way they could die, he said with tired determination as he slowly lowered his arms, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth onto the machine. Konan glanced quickly at her companion before resting her gaze on the blonde Konoha ninja in front of them. She remained worried, but her expression relaxed slightly as she acknowledged the truth in Nagato's words. It especially can't be helped with your generation, you don't know war. You may try to find meaning in death, but there is only pain. Nagato raised his eyes to look at Naruto as he continued. An unbearable hatred, senseless deaths, eternal hatred, and a pain that does not heal. That is what war is, he said as Naruto watched him, listening intently, his expression unwavering. Naruto, this is what you will be facing in time, the skeletal man stated. Naruto's eyes widened. What does he mean by that? Does he somehow know what's going to happen in the future? That would be hard to believe, but after everything that's happened here today, I really wouldn't put it past him, he mused to himself. Nagato took a deep breath before he closed his eyes and chuckled softly. You and that book, it feels like someone set it all up. Or, perhaps, it was the work of a real god. Naruto only stood there, watching Nagato carefully, still not showing any emotion. It seems my work ends here, Naruto, Nagato said wearily, as his eyes opened once again. I believe you can bring true peace in my stead. Naruto's eyes widened as he took a small but sharp intake of breath. He noticed Nagato's eyes change ever so slightly, softening almost imperceptibly, but the blonde knew that Nagato's last statement carried more weight than he let on. Those were his last thoughts before he felt his eyes grow immeasurably heavy, his knees turned to jelly and gave way beneath him. The world spun as he suddenly felt himself in a state of freefall. It was slow, agonizing, he had lost control of his body. Care of him, Konan, he thought he heard Nagato say. His vision darkened and he felt nothing as he hit the ground with a thud. He hadn't noticed the one-handed seal that Konan made, and he didn't feel the wave of chakra that knocked him out cold. She walked over to the Konoha ninja, looking over her shoulder at Nagato. This time, there was apprehension in her voice. Are you sure about this, Nagato? Do you really trust him that much? Especially with she trailed off. I truly hope this boy is who Nagato thinks he is. If he isn't, then this will all be for naught, she thought to herself. Nagato gave a weak nod before speaking. I do, Konan. He and I are not so different. He reminds me of myself, and a bit of Yahiko. His voice trailed as he said the last part, but Konan heard him, and blinked back a few tears at the mention of their friend. He was right, he was a bit like Yahiko, determined to bring peace to this cruel shinobi world. She only nodded before kneeling and carefully laying Naruto on his back, quietly remembering Yahiko and who he was. Are you ready, Konan? Nagato asked his blue-haired friend. He looked at her, remembering everything they had been through together. He remembered their time in AIM, their time with Jiraiya, their time with Yahiko. He smiled inwardly. He felt an immeasurable gratitude to his 2 friends. They were more like siblings to him than friends. Konan turned to him, her amber eyes soft but determined, and gave him a nod. She knew what she had to do. Nagato nodded back. Take my eyes. Give them to him. He'll do what I couldn't do. What we couldn't do, he trailed off. His voice held undertones of acceptance and disappointment in what the Akatsuki had become. Conan rose and started towards Nagato, and he spoke with his last breaths as she did. Thank you, Conan, thank you for the bread, thank you for being my family, he said with a weak voice as his eyes shut for the last time. Conan looked upon the man she came to see as a brother, blinking back long withheld tears. No, Nagato, thank you, she shakily whispered as she took him and laid him down next to Naruto. Conan took a deep breath to relax herself. She wasn't a medic by any means, but she had knowledge of first aid and treating wounds of different sizes from her time traveling with Yahiko and Nagato. She had minimal knowledge of medical ninjutsu, and only learned the basics of mystical palm thanks to Jiraiya telling the trio about his teammate, Tsunade. This, however, was something she had no knowledge of, outside of basic anatomy. Her first thought was to reach for her kunai but thought better of using something so large and unwieldy for something so delicate. She then had the idea of using her paper to make a scalpel. She knew she could make her paper razor sharp, and she had much better control of her paper than she would a kunai. She breathed a sigh of relief knowing that she had surmounted that obstacle. She knelt and gently opened Naruto's eyelid, afraid to wake him despite knowing he would be out cold for a long while. Her hands were shaking. She tried to steady her breathing. I can do this. I have to do this. For Nagato. For Yahiko. For the world, she told herself. She focused as she gingerly worked her floating paper scalpel into Naruto's first eye socket, severing its connections, and carefully removing it with her still shaky hand. She quickly moved to his other eye, repeating the procedure, her hands only slightly less shaky. Holding the eyes of this boy, seeing their bright, sapphire blue irises outside of his head, feeling their weight in her hand, it was one of the strangest things she'd ever experienced. She shook her head, pushing that thought aside, as she went to Nagato and carefully removed his eyes, making sure to keep them as intact as possible. For a moment she marveled at them. She never realized what the Rinnegan did to a person's eyes, how it completely changed the eye from white to purple, how the concentric circles were somehow embedded into the sclera, unable to be removed. She breathed a sigh of relief, only to notice her hands were covered in blood. She stared at her hands in utter shock, one holding Naruto's eyes, the other holding Nagato's. Don't faint, don't faint, don't faint, don't faint, damn it, she thought, as she took a deep, quivering breath to calm down. She was no stranger to violence, no stranger to blood or death, but something about this made her skin crawl. She pushed those feelings aside as she got to work, gently opening each of Naruto's eyelids once again, carefully sliding Nagato's purple orbs into place. She drew upon her knowledge of mystical palm and focused, trying to stop the bleeding as best she could and to repair the muscles and optic nerves. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she focused on pushing the healing chakra into Naruto. I pray this holds together long enough for him to get proper treatment. Otherwise this will have been for nothing, she thought to herself. She felt the connections repair themselves to a point where they were salvageable, and she tried to stop the bleeding enough so he wouldn't lose too much blood. Despite her efforts, he still looked like hell. Blood had run out of his eye sockets and onto his temples. Conan cursed her lack of proficiency, but she knew he would be in good hands. One of his teammates was an apprentice of Tsunade, or so she heard. She set him against a tree close by before going, wincing at the fresh blood leaking from his closed eyes. It ran down his whisker-marked cheeks like tears. She looked over him one last time before going to reclaim the bodies of Nagato and Yahiko. She wrapped their bodies in her paper before she dispersed the paper tree that she and Nagato had been hiding in. She summoned her paper wings and journeyed back to Amagekyo with the bodies of her friends. Only after she buried them both did she sit down and allow the dam holding her emotions back to break. She cried until she had no more tears, letting herself mourn the death of her brother. At least the rain would mask the sound of her sobs. Kakashi found him against a tree. Not that it was particularly difficult, as his orange tracksuit and blonde hair were like a beacon for anyone trying to find him. He breathed a sigh of relief that he had found his student, but his relief turned to shock and concern as he approached Naruto and noticed all the blood on his face. Naruto! He called out to his student, no response. Kakashi cursed under his breath, expecting the worst, but was hoping it wasn't so. He landed in front of Naruto, looking over his student with an expression of worry in his one visible eye. Naruto was motionless, and it looked as though he wasn't breathing. Kakashi gently shook the boy by his shoulder, which caused him to grunt. Kakashi let out the breath he had been holding. Thank goodness he's alive, he thought to himself, relieved beyond measure. He ventured to examine the apparent wounds to his eyes, gently opening his eyelid to inspect the damage. As soon as he saw Naruto's eye, Kakashi gasped. This can't be, he said under his breath. He immediately lifted his headband and opened his Sharingan eye to examine what appeared to be a Rinnegan eye. He channeled chakra into it and gasped again. He has the eye of legend, he said. He could hardly believe it. He opened Naruto's other eyelid and was stunned to see that he had not one, but two Rinnegan. Kakashi hoisted his student onto his back, quickly setting off to head back towards Konoha, or what was left of it. He knew he had to get Naruto to Sakura and Shizen. Naruto, just what happened back there? Kakashi asked, knowing he wouldn't get a response anytime soon. Sakura walked through the ruins of the village, unable to comprehend what had just happened. She saw the bodies, she saw the destruction caused by that orange-haired Akatsuki member. She heard the screams, the explosions, the groaning of buildings collapsing. She smelled the dust from said buildings, she smelled the smoke and ash from the fires, she smelled the blood from the dead and injured. Those sights, sounds, and smells were burned into her mind. She remembered when Naruto finally arrived and fought Pain. She saw him stab Naruto, pinning him to the ground. She watched in horror as he threw Hinata around like a ragdoll, before he drove one of his rods through her. That was when she felt the air explode with a familiar chakra. After the explosion of chakra from the nine-tailed fox that nearly knocked her off her feet, the two fought furiously, and she remembered Naruto tearing after Pain into the forest. She immediately set off to look for survivors after Sasuke snapped her out of her trance. While the village was still destroyed, the very same people she had seen perish were back, somehow just as alive as they were before the attack. She could hardly believe it. She even ran into Kakashi, who she embraced, glad to see a familiar face. Kakashi-sensei, where's Naruto? I haven't seen him since she asked as her voice trailed off. Kakashi's visible brow raised. Since what, Sakura? He asked the kunoichi, with a hint of concern in his voice. Since he went berserk and released that chakra again, she said, biting her lip and averting her eyes. Kakashi's eye widened at the mention of the Nine Tails chakra. The Nine Tails? That can have been good. I'll need to follow up with Yamato, he noted as he continued to listen to his student. Sakura took a breath and regained her composure. He fought Pain in that state for a bit before they both went into the forest, she stated, finally meeting her sensei's inquisitive gaze. Kakashi nodded, a determined look in his eye. Thank you, Sakura. I'll go look for him, since he could be hurt. It would probably be best for you to find Shizen if she's around and tend to the wounded. I'll come find you and Sasuke once I've found Naruto, he said before sprinting off towards the forest. Sakura sighed to herself and wrung her hands. Naruto, please be okay, Kakashi-sensei, please find him, she prayed. Sasuke was looking for survivors, while she was heading to the field hospital that had been set up to tend to the wounded. Sasuke had promised her he would meet her at the field hospital after he had finished his search. She walked at a steady pace. Her emerald eyes never left the ground as worry gripped her heart like a vice. Sasuke had been looking for survivors and pulling bodies from the rubble when it happened. He felt something strange. The next thing he knew, the same body he had just pulled from the rubble glowed green stood up on its own. Instinctively, he activated his Sharingan to see if it was a genjutsu, but much to his shock, it wasn't. The same person who was dead not even 5 minutes ago was alive and walking as though nothing had happened. He blinked a few times, mouth agape, before shaking his head to snap himself out of it. Looking around, he could see more people rising where green glows appeared. What in the world is all this? People are just coming back to life. Is this some sort of jutsu? Sasuke asked himself, trying to reason his way through the events unfolding before him. His mind immediately went to his teammate and best friend. Naruto, what happened? What did you do? He asked aloud, watching people once deceased walking once more, his expression stoic despite his surprise and disbelief at the situation. You'd better come back safe, you idiot, he thought to himself. He was worried about the blonde fool, but he would never admit it to anyone, not even himself. He made his way to the field hospital to find Sakura. The field hospital was organized chaos. Medics scurried about, tending to the wounded while shinobi and civilians alike were bringing in survivors, some of whom were worse for wear than others. Sasuke arrived in the wake of the mass resurrection, which, if anything, threw the field hospital into more chaos. Patients pronounced dead were now suddenly up and walking, as though they had only woken from a nap. The incredulity and shock had given way to relief and cautious joy. Sasuke took in the sights and sounds as he walked along a gravel path separating 2 rows of tents. The air was heavy with the smell of antiseptic, canvas, and iron. His eyes wandered, stealing glances into open tents, hoping to find his pink-haired teammate. Though he wasn't thinking it, he was hoping to find Naruto with Sakura. The blonde would no doubt be getting an earful from his pink-haired friend, as well as a good smack upside the head for worrying his team, especially her. Sasuke had found Sakura's temper annoying at first, especially when he was put on a team with her and Naruto. As time passed, however, he found her peculiar way of showing affection a bit endearing. Thankfully, she had reeled her temper in a bit, especially after the Chunin exams. His reminiscing was cut short when he spotted pink locks a short distance away. He quickened his pace, gravel crunching beneath his sandals. Sakura! Over here! He called to his teammate. Her head snapped up from what she was doing, her emerald eyes searching for her teammate. She spotted his spiky black hair and breathed a sigh of relief as she caught him in a crushing embrace, which Sasuke returned. You made it back, she sighed, burying her face in his shoulder. The two held each other for a second, taking in each other's presence, and the fact that they were both okay before Sakura released Sasuke and took a step back. Have you seen what happened? People who were dead are somehow alive again, as if nothing happened, she asked, with a puzzled look. Sasuke nodded, a similar look disfiguring his normally stoic face. Yeah, I have. Matter of fact, I saw someone I pulled from the rubble glow green and get right back up. I thought it was a genjutsu at first, but this is all actually happening. Could this have something to do with what happened with Dash? He started, before Sakura finished his question for him. Naruto? I don't know, she said, brows furrowed, eyes focused on the ground as she once again went over what had happened, trying to make a connection between that and the resurrections. I mean, you saw what happened. He did release that chakra again. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with this, but then again she trailed off. With how little we know of that chakra and what it's really capable of, it's hard to say for sure, she thought. Sasuke sighed, knowing what the girl was thinking. Since neither of them had seen anything aside from glowing bodies standing up again, it was hard to say for certain whether or not Naruto was the reason those people were alive again. Knowing him, he probably did have something to do with this. He's always had a knack for pulling things off at the last second, and unexpectedly so, the Uchiha mused. I suppose the only one who can say for sure is Naruto. Speaking of which, have you seen him since the battle? Do you know if he found his way back yet? He asked his teammate. Sakura shook her head. No and no, she stated, her voice thick with disappointment. I ran into Kakashi-sensei on the way here. He said he was going to look for Naruto after I told him which direction he and Pain headed off in. After that, I ran into you, and now here we are. She took a moment to look over Sasuke. You look exhausted, Sasuke. You should go rest, she said with a small smile. Sasuke gave his teammate a knowing look. You know I won't sit down until that idiot shows up with Kakashi, he said nonchalantly. Besides, I need to give him a piece of my mind for keeping all the fun to himself. Sakura rolled her eyes and couldn't help but giggle. The rivalry between those two never ceased to amaze and amuse her in equal parts. It had brought them closer since they were in the academy. She knew Sasuke and Naruto had been friends even before she met them in the academy, but seeing their friendship firsthand and how the two respected each other warmed her heart. The two were like brothers to each other. That fact was especially evident after Naruto had beaten some sense into Sasuke when he became consumed with his thirst for revenge against his brother, Itachi. He had wanted to leave everything behind for the sake of getting stronger, but Naruto had reminded him of the strength they shared whenever they fought together as a team, and had opened Sasuke's eyes to the path he was dangerously close to following. Her own reminiscing was cut short when she noticed Sasuke's eyes widen like dinner plates. Sakura! Look! He said, his voice barely above a whisper. Her head snapped around and she saw the familiar silver spikes of her sensei's hair. She breathed a sigh of relief before she gasped, her own eyes widening at the sight of her orange-clad teammate on Kakashi's back. Tears stung her eyes as she noticed there was blood on his face. Her heart shot into her throat, her trembling hands moved up to her face. Oh no, she shakily said, her voice barely above a whisper. No way, there's no way he's this badly hurt. This can't be happening. She momentarily argued with herself about what she was seeing, but she snapped herself out of it after seeing Sasuke jog towards Kakashi. She immediately flipped her medic switch and ran towards her team. How bad is it? Has the bleeding stopped? She asked Kakashi, her voice calm but with an edge of determination. She immediately started leading him to find an open tent. I'm not sure just how bad, but the bleeding has slowed. He's unconscious, but he seems stable for now, he replied urgently. Sakura nodded and breathed a small sigh of relief, mentally noting how the blood had fallen on his cheeks and his temples. Someone did this to him while lying down. Did Pain do this? Why go for his eyes specifically, she wondered. She turned to Sasuke, whose face was stoic, but his eyes showed genuine concern for his friend. Sasuke, go find Shizen and bring her here. Tell her it's an emergency with Naruto. Sensei, let's get him inside, she calmly ordered. Both gave a curt nod and Sasuke set off to find Tsunade's assistant, while Kakashi followed Sakura. Sakura ushered Kakashi into the tent, following after him and immediately going into medic mode. Kakashi laid Naruto down on the futon on the ground before Sakura came and held her teammate's wrist, checking his pulse. It's a little slow but it's stable, she noted, before unzipping his jacket and placing a hand on his mesh-clad chest, channeling a small amount of chakra into her hand and feeling for his breathing. Labored. Whatever happened after the fight must have taken a lot out of him. She prepared an 4 drip and inserted the needle into his arm, adjusting his head with a small pillow to keep him comfortable. She turned her focus to his eyes. The bleeding had slowed down considerably, going from a steady drip to a small leak down his temples. She channeled healing chakra to her hands and gently placed her palms over Naruto's eyes, simultaneously healing and sensing for the damage done to his eyes. This is strange, there's damage to the optic nerve and the muscles around the eye, but it's been repaired slightly? It's almost like someone performed a field surgery, then partially healed him with medical ninjutsu. It's not on the same level as a medic, but whoever healed him seems to have done enough to save his optic nerves and his muscles, she noted. She breathed a sigh of relief, knowing her friend would be able to see after being looked at by herself and Shizen. She turned to Kakashi's waiting gaze after finishing her examination. How is he? Is it as bad as it looks? The masked Jonin asked. Sakura shook her head. He'll be alright. He should have no problem seeing and looking around after Shizen and I take a closer look and heal him further. There's just one thing that's strange about what I found. Kakashi raised his brow. Sakura turned to look at her unconscious teammate before continuing. The damage that was done seems to have been healed before you brought him here. Not only that, but it seems like the damage done to his optic nerves and muscles was the result of a field surgery of some kind. Kakashi's eye widened at that. You mean this was intentional? He asked his pink-haired student. She gave him a small nod. Kakashi looked at his blonde student, wondering just what had transpired since Naruto's fight. Sakura ventured to carefully peel one of his eyelids open with a trembling hand. Just as her fingers touched his skin, Kakashi's hand gently grabbed her wrist, causing her to freeze and snap her head to her sensei. Her emerald eyes held confusion and concern. Sensei? What is it? She noticed he had a far-off look in his visible eye, which worried her even more. He spoke quietly and evenly, warning her, Sakura, before you open his eyes to look at them, you need to know something important. Her eyes widened and she gave a small nod before he continued, his voice even lower than before. His eyes are not normal, he stated, the last word wrought with tension from the implications. Sakura blinked at him before she gulped and gave a small nod, prompting him to release her hand. She took a quivering breath to calm down before she gingerly peeled Naruto's eye open. She gasped. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. In place of the familiar sapphire blue, there was purple. In fact, his entire eye was a light purple, with thin, black concentric circles emanating from a small, narrow pupil. His irises were only a slightly darker shade than the rest of his eye. She quickly but carefully opened his other eye. An equally astonished gasp escaped her lips as she saw the same ring purple orb offering its empty gaze. Sakura looked to her sensei, trying to understand what Naruto's eyes were and what they meant. Kakashi-sensei, what happened to his eyes? She asked, her voice thick with concern. He only shook his head and sighed. I'm not sure, if I'm being honest, he said dejectedly. He looked at the concerned girl with a soft eye. I know those eyes. I've heard of them and even seen them before. I checked them with my Sharingan to make sure someone hadn't put a genjutsu or transformation on him, but those eyes are as real as you and me. Sakura wrung her hands, her gaze not leaving the silver-haired Jonin. What are they? I've never seen eyes like that before. They don't look like Sasuke's eyes or any of the Hyuga's eyes, so it can't be Sharingan or Byakugan. She trailed off, trying to reason her way through what Naruto's eyes could be. Kakashi knelt in front of her, meeting her gaze. You're right, they're not Sharingan or Byakugan. In fact, those eyes that Naruto's got, he pointed his thumb at the blonde, are said to be more powerful than both the Sharingan and the Byakugan. They're called the Rinnegan. The only other person who was said to possess them was called the Sage of Six Paths. Sakura gasped again. Her eyes were the size of dinner plates by this point. Her voice was low but was dripping with shock and disbelief. The Sage of Six Paths? But he's just a myth. There's no way he could have the same eyes as, well, a minor god. She glanced at her unconscious teammate, trying and failing to understand how this could be possible. Her train of thought was interrupted by her sensei. That's what I thought too. However, that dojutsu is unmistakable, he stated with a sense of finality. Sakura once again looked at the unconscious Naruto. This just sounds so unbelievable, she thought aloud. But I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. You've always been full of surprises, she said to her unconscious teammate. A small smile tugged at her and Kakashi's mouths. They sat in silence for a moment. Sasuke entered the tent and snapped them back to the matter at hand. I found Shizen, he announced as he ushered Tsunade's dark-haired assistant in. Sakura quickly got up and thanked Sasuke before filling Shizen in on the situation and Naruto's current condition. I checked his vitals, he's stable for now. Breathing is a bit labored, likely from fatigue and the force of whatever knocked him unconscious. The bleeding has slowed considerably. She paused before looking at Shizen with a pleading gaze. Shizen, I need you to promise me something. She turned to Sasuke. You too, Sasuke. They both gave Sakura puzzled looks before nodding. Sakura gestured to both of them as the trio knelt down next to Naruto. Sakura looked at both of her raven-haired companions before speaking in a quiet but serious voice. What you're about to see stays between us and Lady Tsunade. Nobody else is to know about this, clear? Sasuke's face hardened as he grasped the severity of what she was about to show them, while Shizen still wore a confused expression. After looking into Sakura's pleading gaze, she nodded. Sakura took a deep breath before she gently opened one of Naruto's eyelids, revealing one of his Rinnegan. Shizen gasped and brought her hands to her mouth, lost for words. Sasuke's eyes widened as he instinctively activated his Sharingan, which Kakashi took notice of. It's not a transformation or a genjutsu. I checked when I found him. Those eyes are real, he explained to the Uchiha. Sasuke stared at the purple orb before his eyes changed back to their normal onyx color. Sakura's emerald eyes jumped between Shizen and her raven-haired teammate. Both of his eyes are like this, she stated as she gently peeled open his other eye, revealing the same purple orb with concentric circles. She let his eye close. Shizen's eyes were impossibly wide and unblinking, her gaze fixated on Naruto's face. Sasuke was stiff as a board, his eyes no less unblinking, also staring at his teammate. They all sat in silence, the air thick with uncertainty and shock. Sasuke was the first to break the silence. Kakashi-sensei, those eyes, are they a dojutsu? They sure as hell aren't Sharingan or Byakugan, he asked, not looking away from Naruto. Kakashi nodded. They are. Naruto seems to have acquired the Rinnegan, he said plainly. Both Sasuke's and Shizen's heads snapped to look at the silver-haired man. They were met with his usual half-lidded, indifferent gaze. This time Shizen spoke, her voice trembling slightly. The same eyes as the Sage of Six Paths, but how? She thought aloud. There's something else that I should mention, Sakura began as Sasuke and Shizen turned to face her. When I was examining him, I found that the damage done to his optic nerves and the muscles in his eye sockets was repaired before he got here. Not only that, but the damage that was still present was too precise to be anything inflicted by something like a kunai or, heaven forbid, someone ripping his eyes out with their bare hands. It was like someone surgically removed his original eyes and replaced them with the Rinnegan, she explained. Shizen gasped again. Sasuke's jaw dropped. Shizen reached for Naruto's face, channeling chakra into her hands and gently placing her palms over his closed eyes, looking for the signs Sakura had described. After a few moments, she sighed. Sakura is right, the optic nerves and surrounding ocular muscles seem to have been deliberately cut and repaired, albeit by someone who isn't a medic, judging by the extent of the repairs. She explained, before turning to Sakura. You know his blood type? The younger medic gave a curt nod and stood up, already knowing what her colleague was going to ask. I'll go try to find a transfusion kit just in case, she said, exiting the tent. The crunch of gravel beneath her sandals quieted as she walked away. Shizen turned back to the blonde and molded her chakra to start healing his eyes and their connections. Despite the non-professional healing that was done, she was glad that someone at least had the sense to do so, since this made her job that much easier, and likely saved Naruto's sense of sight. Kakashi turned to Sasuke, who hadn't moved much since the two medics had gotten to work, seemingly in a trance. The Jonin rose, and placed a hand on his student's shoulder, causing him to flinch at the unexpected contact. Sasuke turned to look up at Kakashi's half-lidded eye. Come on, let's give Shizen some space while she fixes up Naruto, Kakashi said calmly, trying to relax the Uchiha. Tell Sakura we'll be outside resting, we won't be far away, he said to Shizen. She nodded over her shoulder with a small smile aimed at Sasuke as she continued to work on Naruto. Sasuke sighed. He didn't want to leave his teammate and friend alone, but he knew that he would want him to be rested as well. Sasuke turned once more to his unconscious friend. You better wake up soon, dummy. I need to test that dojutsu of yours, he muttered. I'll help you when you wake up. You're my brother. It's the least I can do for you after what you've done for me, he thought to himself. Kakashi gave one of his signature smiles as he ushered himself and Sasuke out of the tent. It was late afternoon, and the sun had crept further into the west. Ghosts of orange and pink peeked out from the horizon, signaling the impending sunset. Thin wisps of clouds adorned the sky like brushstrokes of white on a light blue canvas. The beauty and serenity of the heavens stood in stark contrast to the tragedy that occurred below. Sasuke and Kakashi walked in silence for a bit, looking for somewhere to sit and rest. They happened upon a few logs arranged in a circle, likely used by other weary survivors to rest. The duo sat across from each other, each letting out an exhausted sigh. Kakashi's visible eye closed as he gathered his thoughts and meditated, while Sasuke studied the gravel and dirt beneath his feet. Sasuke broke the silence, retrieving his canteen. So, Kakashi-sensei, he started. The masked Jonin let out a hum and slowly opened his eye to meet his student's onyx gaze. What happened with you before you found Naruto? Neither me nor Sakura saw you when he was fighting pain, he continued, opening his canteen to take a drink. Kakashi tilted his head slightly at his student before he gave another of his distinctive smiles. Ah well. You see, I was incapacitated after fighting a couple of Pain's bodies, he said nonchalantly. Sasuke immediately choked on his water, spitting out the sip he had taken and coughing violently. Kakashi maintained his jovial expression. Sasuke turned to his sensei with a furrowed brow after he cleared his throat. What do you mean incapacitated? He probed, knowing there was more behind that word than simply being unconscious, given Kakashi's way of understating even serious matters. The silver-haired scarecrow merely rubbed the back of his head, his expression shifting slightly to reflect his sheepishness. Well, I was stuck in a pile of rubble for a while. Thankfully Choji and Chozo were there to help me, but pain did quite a number on us. Even Chozo was down, he explained. Sasuke's brow returned to normal as he gave a small nod. I was the one who sent Choji to warn Lady Tsunade about Pain's abilities. Actually, Kakashi continued, his eye going back to its familiar half-lidded state. Sasuke nodded once more as Kakashi told more of his side of things. After that, I have no real recollection of anything. The only thing I remember after sending Choji was waking up feeling better, and seeing green glows all around me, Choza being one of them. I ran into Sakura after that, who told me about Naruto's fight. I found him in the forest, and the rest you already know since you were there, he finished with a smile beneath his mask. Sasuke was able to take a drink from his canteen, at last. He sat in silence for a moment, taking in everything his sensei had just told him. He remembered walking with Sakura before the first attack started, helping the civilians to safety, fighting off strange summons, helping Andu. It was chaos like he had never seen before. Just as he had found Sakura again, he saw the bright flash just before the village was reduced to rubble and a crater. He let out a sigh, trying not to let his mind linger too long on the memories of his home being attacked. Sasuke turned to the Jonin. You know, sensei. I don't think I ever thanked you, he stated. Kakashi raised his eyebrow at this. Thanked me? For what, Sasuke? He asked, puzzled. Sasuke gave a small smile. For everything, really, he said nonchalantly. Kakashi's eyebrow was fixed in its raised position. Sasuke gave a small chuckle. I guess I should explain, huh? What I mean is for everything you've done as our sensei. For pushing us, teaching us the value of teamwork, not giving up on us, encouraging us. If it weren't for you, Naruto, and Sakura, I don't know if I would be where I am now. I very well could have followed a similar or worse path than Itachi, he continued, a far-off look creeping its way into his eyes as he mentioned his brother, and the path he nearly set off on. After our mission to Wave, I really felt lost. I was frustrated and angry. I had convinced myself that I was angry at my brother, but I was frustrated with myself because I blamed myself for what happened that night to my clan. Even though it took Naruto beating the shit out of me in the Valley of the End for me to come to my senses, I'm grateful to him for it. I never would have remembered that he was one of my first friends, he continued, a smile tugging at his lips as he talked about his teammate who was like a brother to him. Kakashi gave his own smile under his mask. I was worried about you after that mission, you know, he started. You were even moodier than usual and were constantly brooding. You were even bickering with Naruto less. That's what really tipped me off. Even Naruto and Sakura had sought me out at one point to express their concern to me about how you were acting. Especially after the Chunin exams. I had told Naruto the same thing I told you all after the bell test, he recounted. Sasuke nodded, remembering that day. Those that break the rules are scum, but those that abandon their comrades are worse than scum, he said, finishing Kakashi's sentence. Kakashi gave another smile. That's right. It looks like Naruto really took that to heart, didn't he? He asked rhetorically, trying to lighten the mood slightly. Sasuke gave his sensei another smile and a small nod. Just as the two were finishing their reminiscing, they heard a feminine voice from a distance. There you two are. Shizen said you weren't far off, but I didn't think you'd be over here, the familiar voice called. Sasuke and Kakashi turned to see their pink-haired teammate making her way towards them, waving. Kakashi waved back as Sasuke stood. How is he? He asked urgently. Sakura put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He's fine. We hooked him up to a blood transfusion and Shizen is working on repairing his eyes as we speak. After that he'll just need some rest, she explained. The two men let out sighs of relief. Sakura sat on the log and gave Sasuke an expectant look before he planted himself next to her. She let out her own sigh, turning her attention to Kakashi. So, sensei, what happened with you? I meant to ask you, but then all that stuff happened, she asked. Kakashi gave another distinct smile as he told her about his situation with Choji, Choza, and his fight with Pain. Sakura's eyes were glued to the silver-haired man, nodding now and again to convey that she was listening. At the conclusion of his account, she let out another sigh and looked between the two men. I'm just glad you two are okay, and I'm especially glad you found Naruto, sensei, she said as she gave her sensei a small smile. Sasuke hummed and Kakashi returned her smile with a quick nod and his own grin. The trio sat in silence once again. It's easy to mistake this silence as awkwardness or a lack of camaraderie. However, it was more of a testament to their deep understanding of each other and their experiences as a team, experiences which forged solid and nigh unshakable bonds. Entire conversations could be held amongst themselves without so much as a sound. The events which forged the bonds of Team 7 were complicated. They were often full of shared sacrifice and pain, but each sacrifice, each wound, each jarring experience was a strike of the hammer upon steel, folding and reinforcing their ties to one another. Their mission to Wave Country was where they first discovered just how naive they all were when it came to their expectations of the ninja lifestyle. They had witnessed death firsthand. They had seen their normally stoic sensei beat the demon brothers of Kiri and skewer the missing Nin Zabuza Momochi on his forearm with his Chidori. They had seen Haku effortlessly drop the crime lord known as Gato with a single saban to the throat after Naruto spared his life and stopped him from putting himself between Zabuza and Kakashi. Sakura had received a harsh reality check, having the rose-colored glasses ripped off after seeing Sasuke nearly die and Naruto go into a fit of rage after the fact. She was forced to reevaluate how she felt about her team, Naruto especially. Sakura had never realized that he was capable of unleashing that much raw power, and it both frightened and amazed her. During his near-death experience, Sasuke had realized that not only was he not as strong as he had thought himself to be, but that he had protected Naruto on sheer instinct. He didn't have to think about protecting his brother, he just did it. Their loudmouth teammate matured as well, coming to the same realization as Sasuke, and in typical Naruto fashion, he vowed to everyone in earshot that he would train his hardest to get stronger to protect those that he held dear. Naruto had ended up befriending the androgynous boy Haku, and offered to take him back to Konoha with his team. It had taken quite a bit of convincing from Naruto and Haku to get Kakashi and the other two genin to agree, but Team Kakashi had returned to Konoha with their +1, who the team had admittedly warmed up to along the way. He was immediately put through the course of interrogation, examination, and probation before being allowed the possibility of becoming a Konoha shinobi. Haku was just grateful to have been taken in. Their training leading up to the Chunin exams had been rigorous, to say the least. After getting an earful from Hiruzen, Kakashi had doubled down on his efforts to mold his cute little genin into respectable shinobi. He had started with their chakra affinities. Sasuke shared lightning with Kakashi, who was disappointed that he didn't possess the fire affinity that his clan was so well known for, but was grateful that he at least had a teacher who shared his affinity, one who also possessed a Sharingan, no less. Sakura's affinity test had surprised everyone. The chakra paper that she was given had split in half, dampened, and then frozen in her hand. Even the unshakable Sasuke was agape at Sakura's newly discovered Kekkai Genkai, the likes of which they had only ever seen once. Naruto possessed a wind affinity, which was a bit of a rarity among the shinobi of Konoha. Kakashi took it upon himself to get in touch with Asuma for supplemental affinity training, which both he and Naruto agreed to. He saw to Sasuke's affinity training personally, and taught him his jutsu, Chidori. Naruto had the idea to refer Sakura to Haku for help with honing her skills with her bloodline, since he was the only one they knew to possess the Hayatan Kekkai Genkai. Thankfully, both Hiruzen and a very surprised Haku agreed. Outside of their training under Kakashi and their secondary teachers, Team 7 had slowly started growing closer. They spent more time together after training, talking and winding down before parting ways. These conversations eventually would be held over meals, and even afternoon tea when they were given a day off. They had even taken to gathering at any one of the members' homes every now and again. Sakura had seen sides of Sasuke and Naruto she had never known of during her days in the academy. Despite their rivalry, the two were best friends. As it turned out, Sasuke and Naruto knew each other even before they started at the academy and were already friends by the time they both started, on account of Sasuke's late mother knowing Naruto. After the Uchiha massacre, Naruto had sought out Sasuke, going so far as to let him stay at his apartment after being released from the hospital until he recovered as best he could. Sasuke had said that the time after his family was killed was when he came to see Naruto as a brother. She had never seen Sasuke smile as much as he did when he was talking to Naruto. She had even heard Sasuke laugh for the first time. Sasuke laughed. The same cool and stoic boy that had his own fan club had enjoyed laughing and smiling just as much as anyone else. Sakura couldn't help but feel as though her world was turned upside down, though she didn't resent it. She knew Naruto always smiled no matter what, but his smiles and laughs were so genuine around Sasuke. Her preconceived notions of Naruto being the annoying class clown were washed away by what she had seen between him and Sasuke. What had surprised her even more was their willingness to talk to her and welcome her into their circle. She was deeply moved by Naruto's compassion especially. He had always gone on about wanting to be strong, and she remembered his vow after their mission to Wave Country. But hearing him tell her that she was one of the people he wanted to protect had struck a chord in the kunoichi. She felt welcomed and wanted, and she genuinely enjoyed their company. Kakashi had originally planned to continue with team-building exercises, but he saw how much closer they had grown, and was more than happy to toss those exercises aside in favor of honing their skills for the upcoming exams. The Chunin exams was the greatest challenge that Team 7 had faced together since their mission to Wave Country. Things were going well at first, until they had a less than pleasant run-in with Orochimaru, who attacked them and branded Sasuke with his cursed seal of heaven and crippled Naruto with the 5-pronged seal and separated him from his team. Sakura had carried Sasuke's unconscious form, hoping to find Naruto when she fought a team from Odogekure, where Sasuke lost control of himself after one of them had hurt Sakura. In retaliation, he broke the arms of one of the Odo genin. Once the team reunited and reached the tower, they quickly brought him to Kakashi, who sealed it to the best of his ability, but the Jonin knew that Sasuke would need a stronger seal to keep Orochimaru's influence at bay. By a stroke of luck, Jiraiya, who was a seal expert, had arrived in Konoha and had taken over Naruto's individual training, albeit after Naruto essentially abandoned his original instructor, Ebisu. The blonde genin had mentioned what happened to Sasuke, and Jiraiya took it upon himself to examine the curse mark with Hiruzen and Kakashi's permission. Everyone, Sasuke especially, breathed a sigh of relief when Jiraiya was able to seal off the influence of Orochimaru's curse mark, which had returned Sasuke back to normal. He was shaken, and Orochimaru had planted seeds of ideas in his subconscious, but he wouldn't lose control like he did in the Forest of Death. The invasion of Konoha by Suna and Oto, led by none other than Orochimaru himself, was another stone on the shared path that Team 7 walked. Orochimaru had killed Hiruzen, but not before Hiruzen could use the Shiki Fujin and cripple Orochimaru's ability to use any jutsu. The village had suffered a good amount of damage at the hands of the combined force. Unbeknownst to Konoha and Team 7, one of the exam participants, Gaara, had turned out to be the container for the one-tailed demon Tanuki. Naruto had been the one to ultimately subdue the tailed beast and its jailer, but not without the help of his teammates and friends. He not only subdued Gaara, but managed to change him for the better, curbing his bloodlust and redefining what it meant to exist in the redhead's mind. He talked with him as they both lay beaten and exhausted about their shared burden of being containers for tailed beasts, and growing up alone. He had even mentioned Sasuke and how their shared experiences and differences brought them together rather than drove them apart. After the invasion of Konoha, something in Sasuke had snapped. He became obsessed with getting stronger and began isolating himself. He always said that he had to be alone so he could get stronger. He became more closed off towards his teammates and his sensei. He was moody, brooding, and more irritable than ever. Everything came to a head when Naruto caught wind of Sasuke wanting to leave the village for the sake of trying to get even stronger. He and Sasuke fought bitterly at the Valley of the End, where Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha had fought many years ago after Madara betrayed the village and Hashirama. The fight had provoked Naruto to the point of releasing some of the nine-tailed fox's chakra, while Sasuke had released some of the power of the curse mark. Naruto had screamed at Sasuke how much he, Sakura, and Kakashi cared about him, and how strong they all were as a team. Each statement was punctuated by Naruto's fist connecting with the raven-haired boy. It wasn't until Naruto held down Sasuke by his shoulders and wept over him that Sasuke snapped out of his lust for power. He wept for his friend. He wept for his brother. All at once, the memories of how close he had grown to his team and how close he and Naruto were from the time they were children flooded back to him. From that day on, he vowed never to abandon his friends for the pursuit of power. Itachi be damned. Jiraiya had caught wind of the trio's accomplishments, and decided to take them along to search for Tsunade to serve as Hiruzen's successor as the fifth Hokage. Naturally, he left that not-so-small detail out when he had asked them to come along, and instead told them they were being sent to retrieve a famous kunoichi medic named Tsunade. Sasuke and Sakura had heard Naruto refer to the Toad Sage as Pervy Sage on account of witnessing him peeping on the women's hot springs for so-called research. They had gently rebuked him for referring to one of the legendary Sannin as such, claiming that someone of his stature couldn't possibly do that. Naruto had vehemently protested their refutations, staking his own claim of Jiraiya being more of a womanizing peeping Tom than they thought, much to the chagrin of the sage. They were proven wrong, however, when they consistently found him in bars with women on each arm, a perverted grin plastered on his face, and giggling like a schoolboy. Naruto scoffed mirthfully at their ignorance while Sasuke and Sakura gaped. Sasuke could hardly believe that this was the same man that had sealed his curse mark, while Sakura could hardly believe that he had the nerve to be so sleazy. The handful of times that they had caught the Toad Sage peeping on women's hot springs further proved that the title of Pervy Sage wasn't unjustified. Said instances threw Sakura into fits of blinding rage. Her fury was enough that Sasuke and Naruto had to hold her back from beating the white-haired Kadra to a pulp. From that point on, even they referred to him as Pervy Sage behind his back. Naruto was the only one audacious enough to call him that to his face. After searching several small towns, sleazy bars, and shady casinos, they had found Tsunade in a pub surrounded by empty sake bottles, accompanied by her assistant, Shizen, and her pig, Taunton. Tsunade was aghast that Jiraiya was able to find her after all those years, while Team 7 could hardly believe that the woman before them was the world-famous kunoichi medic Tsunade. Jiraiya revealed the reasons that he and Team 7 were looking for her. She refused the offer to be the next Hokage, stating that it was a position that only fools would take. An enraged Naruto had challenged her to a match, on the condition that if he beat her, she would come back with them and be Hokage. She accepted, and after revealing herself to be one of the legendary Sannin, beat him with one finger. Naruto had begrudgingly admitted defeat, but Jiraiya had decided to keep trying his luck, so the group trailed Tsunade for a few days after that night. One reason that Tsunade had for not returning with them was that she had been approached by Orochimaru, who had tempted her with a promise to revive her dead lover, Dan, and her younger brother, Nawaki, with the Kinjutsu, Edo Tensei, in exchange for healing his arms, which were crippled by Hiruzen using the Shiki Fujin on him. The grief-stricken woman had agreed, only to be betrayed by the snake Sannin and his underling, Kabuto. Luckily for her and Shizen, Jiraiya and Team 7 stepped in to help. Orochimaru had fled, leaving the fighting to Kabuto. After incapacitating Shizen and forcing Jiraiya to tend to her, he had made short work of knocking Team 7 out of the way. Unfortunately for him, the trio would not be so easily defeated. After mercilessly laying into Tsunade with repeated kicks and punches, the three genin rose. Fueled by their combined anger at the traitor and their desire to fulfill their duty, they relentlessly defended Tsunade. The woman sat there in awe of what she was seeing. Not only did she see the will of fire that her grandfather and great-uncle had spoken of so fondly, but she saw in Naruto the same passion she had seen in her little brother, as well as the same desire to protect that she had seen in Dan. After Naruto had beaten Kabuto with his newly learned technique, the Rinnegan, Tsunade couldn't help but stare at him and his teammates. These three genin were stronger than she had originally thought. She rebuked herself for underestimating them. After patching up Shizen and tending to the wounds sustained by Team 7, Tsunade had agreed to return to Konoha with them and accept the position of 5th Hokage. After some much-needed rest, the genin of Team 7 reunited with Kakashi, who decided that it was time to step their training up in terms of intensity. Since Jiraiya was in the village, Naruto had begun more intensive training with him and less with the Suma. Sakura and Haku had resumed refining her Hayatan, and Sasuke had once again started training more with Kakashi. They picked up missions here and there, and still had found time to hang out and keep their friendship going. Not long after their training had resumed, Jiraiya had offered Naruto a chance to take a trip with him outside the village both to train and to see more of the world they lived in. Of course, he didn't mention that it was also partially due to increasing reports of the Akatsuki being on the move. He had hesitated when Jiraiya had said the trip would be for almost 3 years, but Naruto agreed after speaking to his teammates and his sensei, who were incredibly supportive of the idea. Hearing of Jiraiya's training trip had given Kakashi the idea to take Sasuke with him on a trip of their own. Haku and Sakura talked at length about their options and opted to approach Tsunade about the possibility of being taken on as apprentices, given that both had excellent chakra control and had considered becoming medic nin. Sakura had mentioned the idea to Ino, who was glad to join them. Tsunade had groaned at the prospect of having 3 new apprentices besides Shizen but saw it as the opportunity she was looking for in terms of starting up a dedicated medical program for Konoha, and accepted the 3 under her tutelage. As fate would have it, Naruto and Sasuke had run into each other on their return journey after 2.5 years. The two had talked and caught up with each other right up to the moment they reached the gate, talking mostly about the rigors of their respective training trips. Naruto told Sasuke about how he had improved and nearly perfected the Rinnegan with Jiraiya, along with working on his wind chakra manipulation. Sasuke had mastered Kakashi's original move, Chidori, along with his clan's signature fireball jutsu. He'd also learned quite a bit of kenjutsu, and now wielded a ninjato that was about the same length as a katana. It was a bit odd as far as swords went, even ninjato. It was solid black, save for a small Uchiha crest on the handle, which was flush with the scabbard. He had named it Kusanagi, as a parody of the real Kusanagi that Orochimaru wielded. Sasuke was smiling ear to ear about how he had awakened his third tomo in his Sharingan, thus fully evolving it. Naruto couldn't help but beam with pride at his best friend. After reaching the village and reuniting with Sakura, Haku, and Tsunade at the Hokage Tower, they decided to celebrate with lunch at Ichiraku. Along the way, Naruto and Sasuke had run into their old classmates, and took time to catch up with them on the way. After their meal, Naruto gifted Kakashi a new, unreleased volume from the Ika Ika series called Ika Ika Tactics, which Kakashi accepted while giggling like a schoolboy. Everyone could only awkwardly marvel at how much their sensei loved such a steamy novel. With Team 7 reunited, they were permitted to go on missions once again. Of course, they would continue training with their respective teachers. When Sasuke learned that Naruto had signed the Toad summoning contract and Sakura had signed the Slug contract, he couldn't help but feel a little left out. In the 2 years that he and Kakashi were on the road, there was talk of summoning, but he never signed a contract. Kakashi had offered to let Sasuke summon Pakken and his ninja dogs, but Sasuke politely declined. It wasn't so much that he didn't like Pakken or appreciate the offer, he just wasn't much of a dog person. Truth be told, he preferred cats. Sasuke once more broached the topic of summoning to his sensei, who had suggested he speak with a Tokubetsu Jonin who held a particularly unique summoning contract. No sooner did Anko Mitarashi appear in an extravagant cloud of purple smoke, dango skewer in hand. Sasuke was perplexed at first, unsure as to why the half-insane TNI specialist had appeared before him and Kakashi. She explained that not only did she hold the snake summoning contract, but also had her own curse mark, courtesy of a certain despicable snake Sannin. She offered Sasuke the summoning contract, which he accepted and signed. Snakes, in his mind, were like cats, quiet, calm, and relatively low maintenance. Snakes were just longer, had scales, no legs, and were cold-blooded. He had also borne witness to how strong Orochimaru's snakes were and figured a summon with that kind of power would prove useful. By way of recommendation from Kakashi and Jiraiya, Sasuke and Naruto were promoted to the rank of Chunin. Naruto had wondered aloud why Sakura wasn't being promoted along with them, which Tsunade coolly dismissed by stating she had already been promoted. Sakura had gently added that many of their classmates were also recently made Chunin, while Shikamaru was on his way to Jonin, while Neige had been a Jonin for a few months by that point. As Sasuke and Naruto were still reeling over the fact that they had only just been promoted to Chunin and caught up with their classmates, Jiraiya and Kakashi appeared. Jiraiya had then told the group what he knew about the Akatsuki and their movements. Gaara, who had recently been named Kazekage, had been captured by the Akatsuki. Tsunade had instructed Team 7 to head to Suna and aid them in whatever way they could to retrieve him. They would set out immediately. On their way to Suna, Team 7 had encountered Temari, who was on her return journey from the Chunin exams in Konoha. She decided to accompany them after catching up briefly. During their journey, Naruto had told Temari, Sasuke, and Sakura that he was the container of the nine-tailed fox and how the Akatsuki are targeting Gaara because of his status as a Jinchuriki. Sasuke and Sakura made a vow to themselves that they would do everything they could to protect Naruto. Upon their arrival in Suna, Team 7 had learned of the attack on Kankuro by Sasori of the Red Sand, one of the two Akatsuki who attacked Suna and kidnapped Gaara, and how Kankuro was poisoned by this Sasori. Sakura was able to cure Kankuro and develop portable antidotes, should they meet Sasori in combat. Everyone present was in shock over how quickly she had developed the cure. Naruto and Sasuke knew that she had been studying under Tsunade while they were away, but this was the first time they had seen the fruits of her labor. They were both amazed and proud. Kakashi had summoned Pakken to track Sasori, which would then lead them to Gaara. Temari had offered to join them, but Elder Chiyo, who was a puppeteer as well as Sasori's grandmother, went in her stead. Tsunade had also sent Team Guy as backup, since the Akatsuki were not to be taken lightly. The Akatsuki had dispatched Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashigaki to deal with Team 7 and Team Guy, respectively. Team Guy was occupied with Kisame, a rogue nin who was one of the former ninja swordsmen from Kirigakure, one who wielded a great sword called Samahata, which was famous for devouring chakra. Sasuke, Naruto, and Kakashi would deal with Itachi. Sasuke had frozen when he saw his brother, struggling to sort through the melange of emotions he was feeling. The ensuing fight was not an easy one, and had taken a great deal of teamwork along with Naruto's new jutsu, the Otama Rasengan, to defeat the rogue Uchiha. After the fight, Sasuke sunk to his knees in a state of shock over what had just happened. He had fought his older brother, by whose hand the Uchiha clan was slaughtered in cold blood, and he survived. Despite this, he felt like he had failed. Itachi had turned out to be a different person under a transformation. Itachi was still alive. Sasuke hadn't even been the one to deal the final blow. He had begun to wonder if he had really gotten stronger or if he was just kidding himself. Naruto snapped him out of it, reminding him of everything that had happened since that fateful night. He reminded him of his strength of will and how he was able to overcome the darkness that had nearly consumed him after the Chunin exams. He reminded him that Itachi wasn't the only brother he had, and that seemed to hit home with Sasuke, who sincerely thanked Naruto. Team Guy was largely incapacitated by Kisame, and Guy had fought the former Kiri swordsman alone. Despite the circumstances, he had emerged victorious as well. Kisame had also been someone in disguise thanks to a shape-shifting technique. Their fights had been distractions to buy time for the Akatsuki to extract Shikaku, the one-tailed tanuki, from Gaara, which would kill him if the extraction was successful. The entrance to the Akatsuki hideout was blocked by a barrier, which Team Guy disabled under Kakashi's direction. However, the barrier's failsafe created clones to further delay them. Unfortunately, their delays were successful. Team 7 and Chiyo had found Sasori and Deidara, an IWA rogue shinobi whose specialty was explosive clay, guarding Gaara's lifeless form. Naruto's blood boiled. He was angry enough that some of the Nine Tails chakra had leaked out, causing his features to turn more animalistic. Deidara flew off on a clay bird with Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi in hot pursuit, while Chiyo and Sakura stayed behind to face Sasori. Sasori was a master puppeteer. Sakura had seen what Kankuro was capable of with his puppets, but Sasori was on another level. He was fast, faster than expected, and found every opportunity to strike either with his blade-like tail or with hidden poison Senbon. Sakura had told Chiyo to use her like she would a puppet, and had destroyed Sasori's first puppet, Hiriko, which served as a suit of armor. After Hiriko was destroyed, Sasori revealed his true form. He had looked just as young as he had when he left Suna. His grayish-brown eyes were half-lidded as his face held a hazy look, framed by his short, mousy red hair. He then revealed one of his favorite puppets, the third Kazekage. Chiyo's incredulity prompted Sasori to reveal that he not only killed the third Kazekage, but turned his body into a puppet, along with 297 other people. He then stated that he planned to do the same to Sakura and Chiyo. Chiyo summoned two puppets that had the appearance of Sasori's parents, puppets that Sasori had made himself to remind him of them. The fight against the Kazekage puppet was bitter. The array of concealed blades, poisons, and traps made Hiriko seem like a child's doll, but even that puppet was dispatched by Sakura, who was thankful for the rigorous training that Tsunade had put her through, not to mention the doses of antidote she had prepared for the exact situation she had been in. After the destruction of the Kazekage puppet, Sasori had revealed his secret. He had made himself into a living puppet. His heart was kept in a talisman in his chest labeled with the kanji for scorpion, which allowed him to use chakra. Chiyo used her shirohiji, Jiki Chikamatsu no Shu, while Sasori countered with his akahiji, Hayaki no Son. In the end, Sasori had died at the hands of the puppets of his mother and father that he had made. The puppets had held him in a similar way that his own parents did when they were alive. Chiyo believed that Sasori let himself be killed. Sakura and Chiyo were both fatally wounded, but Chiyo used a technique that she developed for Sasori to save Sakura's life. Since Sakura was alive, she was able to heal Chiyo. Sasori's last words were that he had a spy within Orochimaru's ranks that he was supposed to meet. Sakura flinched when she heard Orochimaru's name, but would pass the intel along. Naruto and Kakashi's fight with Deidara started with Kakashi trying to decapitate Deidara with his kamui, but only managed to sever one of his arms. Sasuke had been floored by Kakashi's new technique. He had never even heard of it before. After that, an enraged Naruto slammed a Rinnegan fueled by the Nine Tails chakra into the clay bird that Deidara was trying to escape on. At first, it looked like Naruto had beaten the explosive-obsessed rogue, but it had turned out to be a clay clone. Naruto had started to sprout a third tail because of his anger. Kakashi and Sasuke could tell that he was beginning to appear feral, which prompted Kakashi to use a seal tag that Jiraiya had given him to stop the transformation. Naruto had returned to normal after that. Sakura, Chiyo, and Team Guy had caught up with the trio, and Deidara had opted to turn himself into a human bomb. He swallowed some of his clay and exploded. Kakashi collapsed from exhaustion after using his kamui to send the explosion to another dimension. Unfortunately for them, this wouldn't be the last of Deidara. Naruto carried Gaara's body as they made their way back to Suna. Along the way, they stopped in a grassy field, where Sakura pronounced Gaara dead. Naruto wept. He wept for his fellow Jinchuriki and the cruelty that he had endured because of his burden. He wept for his failure to save him. He wept for his friend. Chiyo tried to revive Gaara with her Kisho Tensei, but didn't have enough life force left. Naruto had lent his own chakra to help her, and Chiyo was able to revive the fallen Kazekage, but at the unfortunate cost of her own life. The group returned to Suna, where they paid their respects to Chiyo and bid Gaara and his siblings farewell. Gaara had extended a hand for Naruto to shake, which Naruto was unprepared for. Sasuke had been the one to gently guide Naruto's hand to Gaara's, albeit rather awkwardly. The Konoha shinobi made for home, where Kakashi was put on bedrest because of his exhaustion. Sakura reported the intel she received from Sasori to Tsunade, who thanked her and the rest of them for their work. She gave them some time off to rest. Team 7 thanked Tsunade and the members of Team Guy before they decided to meet at Naruto's apartment to talk and relax. After their time off and Kakashi's recovery, Team 7 was summoned to the Hokage Tower for another mission. They were met by their sensei along with Jiraiya and an unknown Konoha shinobi. Jiraiya had started by saying they had a lead on Orochimaru, thanks to the information that Sakura had given them. He was still in the Land of Fire along with his subordinate, Kabuto. After his briefing, Tsunade gave them their mission: join up with another team and hunt down Orochimaru. His knowledge and betrayal of Konoha, along with his involvement with the Akatsuki, made him too dangerous to be left alive. During their briefing, Team 7 were also introduced to a new member, a jonin by the name of Yamato. Naruto was apprehensive about having him along for the mission, given that Yamato gave him the creeps. Sasuke had poked fun at his friend for that. Kakashi proceeded to tell his team of his stint in A and B with Yamato, revealing that he was a wielder of the Mokuton. Team 7's jaws hit the floor with that new revelation. Tsunade gave them 2 weeks to prepare, since the mission would be long, and they would be up against Orochimaru, and likely Itachi as well. Plus, Kakashi and Yamato needed some time to deliberate over which team they would be taking with them. Jiraiya had decided to continue Naruto's training before he learned Senjutsu later. Sakura continued her apprenticeship with Tsunade alongside Haku and Ino, and asked Haku to train her more in Hayatan, which he gladly agreed to. Sasuke had requested to be trained by Anko Mitarashi in addition to Kakashi, given her knowledge of snake summons. Kakashi had given Sasuke a warning regarding Anko and her extreme training methods, which Sasuke dismissed. Kakashi winced and mused to himself how much Naruto's confidence rubbed off on him. The combined squad of Team 7 and Team 8 had set out at the end of the 2-week buffer period. With Kurenai pregnant, Kakashi was the designated jonin leader of Team 8, while Yamato spearheaded Team 7. The group had a lead on Orochimaru that was provided by Jiraiya that put him at one of his hidden bases in the Land of Fire. They had found Orochimaru and Kabuto at one of their hidden hideouts within the Land of Fire after traveling for about a week. Orochimaru had fled and once again left Kabuto to stall. This time, however, Kabuto was outmatched. After taking some hits from Hinata's gentle fist, Kabuto fled as well. Kiba had wanted to pursue but was reminded by Kakashi that the primary target was Orochimaru. He reluctantly agreed, knowing full well the mission came first. With the help of Hinata's Byakugan and the noses of Kiba and Akamaru, the 8-man squad tracked Orochimaru for a few days before they caught up to him in one of the many forests between Konoha and the Land of Rice Fields, now known as the Land of Sound. Of course, the snake had been expecting them. Sasuke and Naruto's blood had boiled when Orochimaru taunted them about his success with giving Sasuke the curse seal of heaven, but held their tongues, not wanting to let the serpentine traitor provoke them. Sakura had maintained a hard exterior despite her unshakable nerves. She remembered what had happened the last time they had faced Orochimaru during the Chunin exams, and was silently praying that it wouldn't happen again. Naruto had sensed her apprehension, and with a knowing look in her direction he communicated that he and Sasuke both were just as nervous as she was, but they would pull through by the combined strength of Team 7 and Team 8. She knew he was right, and silently thanked him. Naruto had turned into a beacon of optimism, inspiring her and others to be confident and never back down. He had truly become a ray of sunshine for the Konoha 12, and she admired him for it. The 8-man squad steeled themselves for the fight that was about to take place. Shino readied his insects, Hinata had activated her Byakugan, Kakashi lifted his headband to reveal his Sharingan, while Kiba and Akamaru poised themselves in their signature taijutsu stance. Sasuke's Sharingan was blazing crimson as he drew his ninjato. Naruto drew a kunai and flared his chakra, ready to create as many shadow clones as needed. Yamato drew his own kunai while he began molding chakra to use his Mokuton at a moment's notice, while Sakura did the same for her Hayatan and her strength enhancement techniques she had learned from Tsunade. The fight was bitter. Orochimaru was nigh on untouchable, his body arching and twisting in unnatural ways to avoid what would be devastating blows. Any blows that did connect had connected with seemingly endless mud clones. Kabuto had managed to further repair Orochimaru's arms, so he was able to use some ninjutsu without many issues. Thankfully, he was unable to summon Manda, his massive personal snake summon. However, he was still able to summon snakes to fight with, as well as use some high-level ninjutsu. Kabuto had managed to find his way back to Orochimaru like a human boomerang, which only made things more difficult. Team 8 had elected to deal with Kabuto while Team 7 dealt with Orochimaru. Their fight was personal. Normally, anger would cloud the judgment and perception of a ninja, but in Team 7's case, it fueled them and drove them to fight harder. Their teamwork was impeccable by that point. Sakura was their main ranged hitter, engaging Orochimaru with Senbon, kunai, shuriken, as well as some of her Hayatan jutsu that she had learned from Haku. Sasuke made openings by way of his fireballs for Naruto to hit hard and deal as much damage as he could. Yamato provided support with his Mokuton, blocking attacks that would have been lethal had they connected with any of Team 7. Though the trio had improved immensely and gotten stronger, Orochimaru was still a cut above most. They were giving him a run for his money, and now and again had taken the Sannin by surprise, but he deftly dodged many of the hard-hitting attacks. He was toying with them at first, but had been forced to start fighting more seriously after being caught off guard a few too many times and being forced to shed a few of his precious bodies he had stored. Orochimaru had taken advantage of the fatigue that had seeped into Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Yamato. They were slowing down, which was just what he wanted. He saw his opening and took it, and slammed Sakura, Naruto, and Yamato into some of the nearby trees, while he threw Sasuke into the ground like a rotten piece of fruit. Sasuke had seen what the Snake Sannin had done to his teammates, no, his friends. The sight of Sakura and Naruto, his brother, gasping for air after having the wind knocked out of them before falling motionless. Seeing his precious people at the mercy of the monster that had given him a curse mark, made his blood boil. He was trembling with rage, his fists clenched hard enough that his nails dug into his palm and drew blood. He focused his fiery gaze on Orochimaru, who had a smug grin plastered on his face. Sasuke felt something awakening within him, a low thrum of energy in his stomach. He had felt it before. He felt it when he first awakened his Sharingan in Wave Country and again when he gained his third Tomo during his trip with Kakashi. His eyes stung as his Tomo spun. His normally red iris had turned black. A red, six-pointed pinwheel with a narrow, black pupil spun as it morphed before slowing to a stop. Orochimaru licked his lips with his obscenely long tongue, seemingly salivating at what had occurred in the Uchiha's ever-desirable eyes. Orochimaru had always wanted to have Sasuke's Sharingan, but now that he had awoken his Mangekyo Sharingan, the Snake Sannin's lust for the dojutsu had reached a new level. Sasuke was relentless, his Mangekyo Sharingan was blazing. Every strike he aimed at the Snake Sannin had Sasuke's unbridled fury behind it. Orochimaru was quick, but with his newly acquired dojutsu and his training, Sasuke wasn't far behind him. He landed some hard hits, and at one point had even caused Orochimaru to shed one of his bodies to avoid being skewered by Sasuke's Chidori. Unfortunately for Sasuke, the combination of his rage and having his Mangekyo active for so long had tired him out, even if he didn't show it. Orochimaru landed a hit on Sasuke that sent him flying. Just as Orochimaru was approaching the Uchiha air, he was slammed by a mass of potent, red chakra. Sasuke looked up to see Naruto standing between him and Orochimaru, growling. His whisker marks were thicker and darker, his canines were longer and sharper, resembling fangs, and his eyes were a striking vermilion with black slits in place of pupils. He was surrounded by a cloak of red chakra that seemed to be boiling. 3 tails, made of the same roiling chakra, extended out from behind him. Sasuke recognized this chakra. It belonged to the 9-tailed fox. He had remembered sensing it during their mission to Wave Country as he drifted in and out of consciousness after Haku had turned him into a pincushion. This time was different though. Naruto was fully aware of his actions. He wasn't just releasing the chakra, he was channeling it. Sasuke couldn't help but smirk. Orochimaru was no longer smiling. He knew facing a fully awakened Mangekyo Sharingan and the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails in his three-tailed state wouldn't be easy, even for him. With Kabuto surprisingly still occupied with Team 8, Orochimaru had to face the duo on his own. Naruto was blindingly fast, fast enough that even Sasuke had trouble keeping up with his movements. He wasn't just fast, he was relentless in his attacks. He was out for blood. Orochimaru had dodged more of his lethal swipes of his claws but had rolled with the punches, countering when the opportunity presented itself. Sasuke took advantage of the moments Orochimaru was hit by Naruto's punches to try and slash at him with his blade, but the snake managed to dodge his cuts. Sasuke was considerably faster, since he had learned to utilize lightning chakra to boost his speed. Coupled with his Sharingan, he was able to track Orochimaru, even if the snake kept slipping right through his fingers. Despite his slipperiness, Orochimaru was getting sloppy. He took more blows than he had intended to, trying to roll with the punches Naruto dealt, while dodging Sasuke's blade. He wanted to end the fight decisively and secure Sasuke's body and eyes, subsequently, for himself. He threw Naruto aside once more, charging blindingly fast at Sasuke in a last-ditch effort, his lower body taking on its signature serpentine form. The snake Sannin had the Sharingan and the last Uchiha prodigy in his grasp. He unhinged his jaw, extending fangs not unlike a venomous snake, and sank them into Sasuke's neck with a sickening noise. No sooner after Orochimaru started internally celebrating his success did he feel a strange sensation coming from his back. In a puff of smoke, Sasuke had turned into nothing more than a log, which the Serpentine Man immediately released from his maw. He looked down to see a thin silver line coming from his abdomen, his eyes widening in horror. He turned to see Sasuke standing behind him, his Mangekyo ablaze, giving him a glare that chilled even the indomitable Orochimaru to his bones. He had expected his eyes to be full of fury and rage, but instead they were indifferent, apathetic. Orochimaru coughed up blood, his face contorted in pain. A trickle of blood ran from one of Sasuke's glowing crimson eyes as he muttered, Amaterasu. Sasuke withdrew his blade as Orochimaru was consumed in obsidian flames. The Sannin writhed in pain as the fire burned furiously all over him. Sasuke only stared in cold apathy. After he had seen enough, he freed the Sannin's head from his body with a single swipe of his ninjato. The forest was deathly silent except for the crackle of the black flames. It was over. Orochimaru was dead, and Sasuke had been the one to kill him. Truth be told, he took no pleasure in Orochimaru's suffering. He wasn't like that inhuman serpent. Even though this was a sort of vengeance, Sasuke felt no sense of triumph over his foe, nor did he feel an inclination to gloat. Rather, he felt relieved that it was finally over, relieved that Orochimaru would no longer be able to hurt people in his twisted ways. Unbeknownst to the Uchiha, Naruto was staring at him with wide, sapphire eyes. His chakra cloak had receded, and his features returned to normal. Sakura had also come to and bore witness to the death of the man who had hurt two of her most precious people a few short years ago. She was relieved, but in a state of shock of what Sasuke was capable of. She noticed his eyes looked significantly different than she remembered. Something had happened while she was unconscious. She would ask him after they got back. She knew it wasn't the time. Not a moment after Sakura and Naruto stood up, Sasuke fell to his knees before falling flat on his face. Yamato woke up to the sight of Sasuke on the ground as Naruto and Sakura rushed to him. Coincidentally, Team 8 had arrived just as Naruto, Sakura, and Yamato were helping Sasuke to his feet, and had reported that while they gave Kabuto a beating, he had fled. Orochimaru was nothing more than a pile of ash, the black flames having dissipated. The 8-man squad inwardly cursed the escape of Kabuto, but let out a sigh of relief at the success of eliminating the primary target. After resting for the night, they had set out to head home. A few days in, they encountered a masked man in a forest between the land of fire and the land of sound. The man was surprisingly eccentric. Sasuke had said that he seemed like he had a screw loose, while Naruto simply said he was a moron. The squad had attacked, but the masked man dodged every single attack, not really taking anything seriously. Some of the more hot-headed members of the squad were infuriated that someone so ditzy was making fools of them. The one-sided fight ended when a person that was half pitch black and half white, seemingly surrounded by a giant Venus flytrap, phased out of a tree limb near the masked man. He had glared at them, and Sasuke and Kakashi swore they saw a Sharingan behind his orange swirl mask. The man had disappeared with a wave of his arm, and the plant man had phased back into the tree, both undetectable even by Hinata's Byakugan. They made haste for Konoha to report to Tsunade. The 8-man squad returned home, weary after everything they had been through. They reported their success in eliminating Orochimaru to Tsunade, who dismissed them after congratulating them. She gave them some much-needed time off, which they were all quietly thankful for. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura had decided to hang out after they had gotten some rest rather than head straight to Ichiraku. Kakashi was glad he finally had some time to read Ika tactics. A few days had passed before Naruto was summoned to the Hokage Tower, where he was greeted by the elder toad sage known as Fukasaku, who informed him of Jiraiya's death at the hands of a member of the Akatsuki known as Pain. Naruto was crushed. He lashed out at Tsunade in anger, but she forgave him, knowing how big this loss was for him. Sakura and Kakashi had remained silent the whole time. Word quickly reached Sasuke of what happened to the Toad Sage. He immediately went to Naruto to talk to him and comfort him as he had done for Sasuke in the past when his clan was slaughtered. Iruka and Sakura had offered their condolences and words of comfort. Even Kakashi had offered his own words of consolation. It took Sakura and Sasuke both embracing him before he really let himself grieve. He wept as his friends held him. Shikamaru and Sasuke had both given the blonde pep talks that truly lifted his spirits. From that point on, he made a vow to train as hard as he could to eliminate the Akatsuki and defeat Pain. Fukasaku offered to bring Naruto to Mount Myoboku to train in Senjutsu and become a Toad Sage as Jiraiya had been. He accepted, and left Konoha once again, promising his precious people to return even stronger. A few days had passed since Naruto was brought back by Kakashi. He hadn't stirred, save for a few twitches and some groans. His teammates and sensei breathed a sigh of relief upon learning that he wasn't catatonic, but the fact that he had been out for longer than they had anticipated was a bit concerning. Though he usually healed remarkably quickly thanks to the Nine Tails chakra, Naruto seemed to be recovering at a slower pace, even after being aided by Shizen's treatments. Sasuke and Kakashi had been aiding in the village reconstruction efforts with Yamato, while Sakura was assisting Shizen and tending to the wounded. Admittedly, Yamato was doing a bulk of the work. His Mokuton was immensely useful, given that he could quite literally create full structures using only his chakra, so he became an invaluable tool. Kakashi and Sasuke had been relegated to basic construction work alongside civilians and shinobi alike. The trio had always found time to visit Naruto at the end of each day to see him and check in with Shizen. By this point he had bandages wrapped around his eyes, his headband sat folded next to his head. Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sakura would usually spend their time reminiscing and discussing the progress of reconstruction while they visited Naruto. They knew he couldn't hear them, but just being in his presence made them feel like they were still a complete team. Still, they couldn't help but worry about him, and each of them had quietly hoped he would wake up soon. There were no dreams. There were no voices. There was no mindscape. There was no fox. There was no cage. There was no beginning. There was no end. There was only darkness. There was only silence. Naruto heard muffled voices as he stirred. He recognized the voices of Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura. There was a fourth voice that he hadn't heard in a while. Shizen? What's she doing here? He wondered. He noticed was that laying on a small futon. His head hurt, feeling like he had taken one of Tsunade's punches. He groaned as he sat up. The voices silenced immediately. He tried to open his eyes, only to find that he couldn't. Sakura threw her arms around the blonde. You're awake, she breathed. Naruto returned her hug as he nodded into her shoulder. Sasuke put a hand on his friend's shoulder after Sakura let go. About time you came around, blockhead, he quipped. Naruto threw a scowl in the direction of Sasuke's voice, which was chased by his signature foxy grin. Welcome back, Naruto, Kakashi greeted, his tone carrying laid-back delight. Naruto could practically see his eye crinkle in his signature smile. Thanks, sensei, he said warmly. He felt a soft hand ruffle his hair, followed by a familiar voice. Good to see you're awake and able to sit up on your own. How do you feel? Shizen asked. I feel okay. My head kinda hurts, but I don't feel weak or sick or anything, Naruto explained. But I can't see. I tried to open my eyes earlier, but they wouldn't, well, open. What gives? Shizen gently took his hand and led it up to his temple, letting him feel the bandages that were wrapped around his eyes. Naruto's breath hitched. What the hell? What happened to my eyes? Am I blind? He started to panic before Shizen took his hand once more. Calm down, it's alright. You're not blind. Your eyes were just injured, so we needed to wrap them to make sure they heal properly, she explained. Naruto could hear the undertones of secrecy in her tone and the way she hesitated. Naruto pursed his lips, throwing Shizen a look of doubt. What do you mean injured? He asked, forming air quotes over the last word. She was about to answer before Kakashi cleared his throat to get Naruto's attention. We were actually hoping you'd be able to tell us that, Naruto, he began. Your eyes were injured when I found you, you see. Naruto sat and pondered for a moment. He turned to Kakashi's general direction. Wait, just how long was I out for? He asked. He was met with silence before he heard Sakura speak up in a soft, sympathetic voice. You were asleep for 9 days. Naruto's jaw hit the floor. If his eyes weren't bandaged shut, no doubt they would be the size of dinner plates. He sat in silence for a moment, poring over what Sakura had told him. He'd only ever been unconscious if he was seriously injured. This seemingly minor injury shouldn't have knocked him out for 9 whole days. His train of thought was interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. Naruto, can you tell us what you remember before you woke up? Kakashi gently asked. Naruto gave a small nod. I found the guy controlling pain. His name was Nagato. I remember him using a jutsu that I'd never heard of. His friend said that it would revive everyone he killed. He mentioned something about hatred and pain and war, and how I would face something in time. Then he told me that he believed I could bring true peace, he explained. He paused for a moment as he set his hands down in his lap. After that, I remember the world spinning, then everything went dark, he said quietly. He felt Sakura grip his hand and squeeze to reassure him. He returned the gesture, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Kakashi sighed. Sakura gently laid Naruto down as Shizen made her way to him. She laid her hands over his eyes, channeling healing chakra into them. Naruto felt a tingling sensation in his eye sockets. He laid still as he felt the healing chakra enter his system. Shizen inwardly sighed in relief, knowing that this was the last session he would need. Naruto felt Shizen's hands leave his head. He sat up again, scratching the back of his head, avoiding the bandages. So, how bad is it? How much longer will I have these bandages over my eyes? Naruto asked anxiously. He was worried that his vision would be impaired, which would mean his abilities as a shinobi would be blunted, which would mean he wouldn't be as strong as he would need to be to protect people. His trepidation only increased when he was met with silence, the air thick with anticipation. He flinched when he felt hands reach behind his head, but relaxed as soon as they started to unwrap the bandages. He sat still with bated breath as the last of the bandages were carefully peeled away from his face. Can you open your eyes, Naruto? Shizen gently asked. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke, and Shizen all sitting in front of him in an arc, their eyes wide. They all let out a gasp as he fully opened his eyes. Shizen and Sakura both brought their hands up to their chest, Sasuke activated his Sharingan out of instinct, and Kakashi simply stared at him wide-eyed. Naruto blinked a few times. He could see perfectly fine. In fact, he could see even better than before. The world looked sharper, minute details were suddenly more noticeable. He cocked his head to one side, eyeing the people in front of him. Is something wrong? I can see perfectly fine, in fact I can kinda see better than before, he explained while he sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. I think you'd better see for yourself, Naruto, Kakashi said slowly. He gestured to Sakura, who went through a couple of hand seals before a sheet of ice materialized in front of him, its surface instantly polishing to a mirror finish. Naruto looked at his reflection, seeing the purple eyes widening to the size of dinner plates before he let out a yelp and jumped back. WHWH, what the fuck happened to my eyes? Why are they purple? Why do they look like that? What happened to my blue eyes? What is going on? Naruto was hysterical and on the verge of hyperventilating. The ice mirror instantly melted, revealing Sakura wordlessly lunging towards Naruto, her hand pulled back. Her open palm met his left cheek with a loud slap, snapping him out of his hysteria. Naruto went stiff as a board, his gaze focused on Sakura, who despite her stony expression held concern in her emerald eyes. Naruto took a deep breath, regaining his composure. Thanks. I needed that. Can you make another small mirror, Sakura? I want to look at my eyes some more, he said quietly. Sakura nodded and made a small ice mirror in front of him. He stared at his reflection, examining his muted purple eyes with thin, black concentric circles, looking like ripples. He used his fingers to gently pull down his lower eyelid to see just how far the purple and ripples went. His entire eye was the same shade of muted purple save for where his iris would be, which was slightly darker than the rest of his eye and outlined with a thin black circle. The narrow, black pupils gave his new eyes a more unsettling appearance. He found himself feeling a little creeped out by just how intense his gaze was now. He turned to Kakashi. This isn't a genjutsu or a transformation, is it? He had a feeling it wasn't either, but he was secretly hoping that this was just some kind of high-level genjutsu that not even his sensei could break. Kakashi shook his head dejectedly. Unfortunately, it isn't. I had thought the same thing when I first found you and examined your eyes. I even checked with my Sharingan, but found no signs of any genjutsu or transformation. Even if it was a high-level transformation, it would have released as soon as Shizen started healing you, Kakashi explained. Naruto gave a small nod in response. So, just what exactly is up with my eyes? What are they? He asked. Why do I feel like I've seen these eyes before? They seem so familiar, Naruto thought. The sense of déjà vu was part of the reason he had nearly slipped into hysterics earlier, aside from the fact that his own blue eyes were gone and replaced by whatever these eyes are. Well, put simply, they're a dojutsu, not unlike Sasuke's Sharingan or the Hyuga's Byakugan. Yours is called the Rinnegan, Kakashi explained. Naruto cocked his head. If they're a dojutsu, how come I can't turn them on and off like the Sharingan or the Byakugan? Kakashi raised his pointer finger upwards, meeting Naruto's inquisitive gaze with his own half-lidded one. Your Rinnegan is different from either of those. One of the main differences being that it's always active, meaning you can't necessarily turn it off like the Sharingan or the Byakugan, he began. Not only that, but the Rinnegan are one of if not the most powerful dojutsu. Those eyes you've got are really quite special, he finished jovially. Naruto beamed and shot Sasuke a wry, foxy grin. Looks like you're gonna need to step your dojutsu game up, duck it, he teased. TCH, As if you'd be able to keep up, dummy, Sasuke shot back with a smirk. Not only are they powerful, Kakashi interrupted, throwing the two Chunin a knowing look. They're also very rare. I've only ever heard of 2 people possessing the Rinnegan, and only ever seen one other person with them, aside from you, Naruto. Naruto swallowed as a knot formed in his stomach. Who are the others? He asked, his voice thick with trepidation. A sense of dread was seeping its way into him, as his mind started putting some of the pieces together. He had recognized the Rinnegan because he had seen it before. He just didn't want to believe it, didn't want to remember. Kakashi's gaze was unwavering as he spoke evenly. The first was a man known as the Sage of Six Paths. He's more of a myth or legend, and is said to be the ancestor of all shinobi. He was also the first, and, until recently, only wielder of the Rinnegan. The second one was Naruto let out a quivering sigh. Pain, he finished quietly. Kakashi nodded in response. No wonder they seemed so familiar. Pain and Nagato had these exact eyes. But why do I have them? I'm not sure about my mom, but my dad didn't have any dojutsu, at least as far as I could tell, the blonde stated. He winced as he realized what he had just unintentionally revealed about his parentage. Kakashi's eye narrowed as the rest of the group looked at the blonde with perplexity. And just how would you know that your father didn't have any dojutsu, exactly? Kakashi probed, his tone bearing an edge that was usually reserved for scolding. Team 7 collectively flinched at Kakashi's tone. Naruto averted his eyes down to the sheets in front of him, avoiding his sensei's stern gaze. I met him, he said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck once again. You met your father? Kakashi asked, his tone softening to one of concerned curiosity. Naruto gave a small nod. I remember laying on my back in my mindscape after I started seeing red, and then the Nine Tails started talking to me, saying stuff about how he could take away my suffering, tempting me and stuff. He told me I just needed to remove the seal on the cage that was holding him. I nearly did it. I was about to remove it when someone caught me and snapped me out of what I was doing. The fox called him the 4th Hokage. He knew my name, he said he named me, said I was his son. That's when it clicked that the 4th Hokage was my dad. He fixed the seal on my stomach, and after that I left my mindscape, he explained, his voice breaking at the mention of his father. He felt tears stinging the corners of his eyes as he looked back up to see that Kakashi's gaze had softened. The rest of the group, even Sasuke, wore sympathetic expressions. They all knew how much it meant to Naruto that he finally knew who his father was after so many years. Minato Namikaze, Kakashi said wistfully. He was my sensei, and one of the greatest men I've ever had the privilege of knowing, he said quietly, a far-off look in his eye. He turned his gaze back to his student. Naruto, your father loved you. More than anything, more than life, he said with sincerity. Naruto could have sworn he saw Kakashi's eye glistening. He nodded in response, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. So, like I was saying, since I'm fairly sure I don't have a bloodline, there's no way I awakened my eyes like Sasuke awakened his Sharingan back when we were genin, he reasoned before Sakura cleared her throat. There's something you should know, Naruto. When Kakashi-sensei brought you back, I checked your injuries to see how bad they were, and I noticed something a little odd about them, she began, taking a deep breath. Your injuries weren't consistent with anything that could have been done with a kunai or someone ripping your eyes out with their bare hands. It felt like someone had used a scalpel to carefully cut your optic nerves and ocular muscles. Not only that, the cuts made had been partially healed before you got here, she explained to an enraptured Naruto. Truth be told, the fact that you were healed before you got here is very likely the reason your sense of sight was saved, Shizen chimed in. If the person that healed you hadn't controlled the bleeding and done what they did, it's possible you would be blind right now. Naruto shuddered at the thought of losing his sense of sight because of a botched field surgery. He silently thanked the heavens for his abundant luck before giving a nod of understanding. Kakashi brought a hand to his chin, his head cocking to one side as he pondered. He returned his attention back to his blonde student, his half-lidded gaze unwavering. This may be a bit of a stretch, but I think it's worth considering that Pain, or rather Nagato, might have given you his Rinnegan. Given that you don't remember anything after your conversation with him, the fact that your wounds were more consistent with the field surgery, and that they had been healed slightly before I found you, I think it's a possibility worth considering, Kakashi theorized. This earned him a puzzled stare from everyone in the tent, but as Naruto mulled it over for a moment, he began to see his sensei's reasoning. Maybe his friend had something to do with it. I think her name was Kaneo. No, that's not it, Korra? No, Conan. Her name was Conan. She had pretty blue hair and amber eyes. Now that I think about it, I think I remember Nagato saying something to Conan before I went unconscious, Naruto said as his teammates sighed in exasperation at his shoddy memory. It was to be expected, given that he was asleep for 9 days after being knocked unconscious, but they hadn't expected him to fumble over the name that much after clearly remembering Nagato's name. Well, your eyes seem to be functioning just fine, and you can move your arms just fine. Do you think you can stand up on your own? Shizen spoke up after Naruto's stumbling. He nodded with a grin. Shizen removed the 4 needle from his arm before she helped him up. Naruto let out an exaggerated sigh at the feeling of finally being able to stretch his legs. Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi stood up with the blonde. Sakura gave Naruto another hug, which he returned. Sasuke held out his fist, which Naruto bumped, exchanging friendly smirks with each other. Kakashi gave him a familiar smile, which he returned with his foxy grin. So, how's the village? Is reconstruction coming along okay? Naruto asked. Yeah, Captain Yamato has been busting his ass with his Mokutan creating buildings like houses, apartment complexes, and government buildings. He's got most of the area covered by now, I think, Sasuke answered. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. He knew Yamato's Mokutan could create structures, but he didn't realize that he was able to create actual livable buildings, too. Naruto hung his head as his thoughts meandered to the Hyuga girl that had put herself between him and pain. What about Hinata? Is she okay? Is she alive? Sakura gently took his hand in hers. She's okay. The rod she was stabbed with missed her vital organs. She's just resting, she reassured with a soft voice. Naruto gave a small nod. Thank the heavens, he breathed. He was grateful to the pale-eyed girl, but he felt a pang of guilt knowing that she put herself in harm's way for his sake. And Granny? Is she okay? The blonde asked as he raised his head, concern written on his face. Lady Tsunade is still unconscious, Shizen said quietly, her head hanging slightly. Summoning Katsuyu to protect everyone in the village during Pain's attack left her pretty exhausted. She's stable, but she needs more rest before her chakra levels return to normal, she explained, her voice carrying an undertone of sadness. Naruto nodded somberly. At least she's alive. She's tough, she'll wake up soon, I just know it, he stated confidently. Shizen and Sakura both regarded him with small smiles. There's that trademark optimism of his, Sakura mused. She knew that his optimism would be much needed in the coming days, so she was glad he retained that despite everything. Naruto's stomach growled audibly. Kakashi quickly tossed Naruto a ration bar. The blonde examined the silver-wrapped parcel before shrugging and tearing it open to dig in. It was dry, but after not eating for over a week, he didn't care. It wasn't ramen, but it would do for now. Say, do you know if Ichiraku has been rebuilt yet? I would kill for a bowl of miso char siu ramen right now, Naruto said, drooling at the thought of his own personal ambrosia. I think I saw something in the shape of a ramen stall on my way over here, but I don't think it's open just yet, Sasuke answered. He would never admit it, but over the years he had come to really enjoy the company of Tuchi and Ayam. They were good people. Their shoyu seafood ramen wasn't half bad either. The only thing that could have made it better would be if they offered tomatoes as a side dish. Naruto pouted at the cruel reality of his favorite place in the world not being open yet, but he understood that things take time. He turned to his sensei as an idea popped into his head. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, do you think it would be possible for you to help me train to use my Rinnegan? You have a Sharingan, which is a dojutsu, so, he inquired. Kakashi brought a hand to his chin, mulling his student's question over for a moment. Well, I can certainly try. But like I said earlier, the Rinnegan is different from the Sharingan. However, as your sensei I'll do my best, given my limited knowledge, he said reassuringly. Naruto was about to burst out of the medical tent before Kakashi silently put a hand up for him to stop. The blonde cocked his head, miffed at the denial of his exit. What gives? Shouldn't I be training with these new eyes of mine? He asked indignantly. Kakashi regarded his student with his usual half-lidded stare. While it's good that you're so eager to train again and get even stronger, it's important to consider your circumstances, he explained sagely. Firstly, you just woke up after being asleep for 9 days. I know you say you feel fine, but it's best that you ease into training and let your body get accustomed to your eyes, which I'm certain feel different than before, he explained. Naruto nodded in response. Speaking of which, your new eyes are to be kept secret. Nobody besides the people in this tent and Lady Tsunade are to know about them. As far as I'm concerned, they're an S-class secret unless Lady Tsunade says otherwise, he said with finality. Naruto considered his sensei's words. I guess he's right. I'm pretty sure nobody knows I have the Rinnegan, and who knows what could happen if word got out that I did. Heaven forbid Kabuto comes after me. Or worse, his thoughts trailed off as he shuddered at the idea of someone coming after him simply for his eyes. Never mind the fact that he was the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. So how do I keep my eyes a secret? My hair isn't exactly long enough for me to hide my eyes, especially not with my headba. Kakashi quickly produced a pair of sunglasses that resembled the ones worn by the Aburame clan. Naruto glanced between the sunglasses and the silver-haired Cyclops, a perplexed expression plastered on his face. Sunglasses? Really? Why not a transformation or a genjutsu? He asked. Even with your chakra reserves, you still aren't good at genjutsu, and holding the transformation would be a constant drain on your chakra. That, and well, frankly, anybody above a genin would be able to see through either, Kakashi explained, a little too cheerfully. Naruto nervously chuckled at the bluntness of his sensei. He may be tactless at times, but he's right when he's right. He took the sunglasses and put them on. Interestingly, the sunglasses didn't darken his vision as he thought. Rather, they seemed to act more as one-way mirrors, letting him see out but not letting others see in. Now then, Kakashi began as he regarded his 3 students. I think it's safe to say that we all ought to go get some rest. Even with the village being mostly rebuilt for the time being, we still need to provide security and assist with construction. And I'm sure you all are eager to spend some time together now that Naruto is awake. I'll see you all tomorrow, he finished with a masked smile before he exited the tent. The Chunin of Team 7 thanked Shizen before setting out together, walking through the village and seeing how reconstruction was coming along. Naruto had remembered Hiruzen mentioning the will of fire in passing, which he shrugged off, as some proverb that old geezers used when talking about whatever old people talked about, but seeing the way the village was coming together to rebuild the village had made him realize that the will of fire was something that really did exist in the people of Konoha. People had begun recognizing Naruto despite his sunglasses. Word had gotten around that he was the one who had beaten Pain and saved the village. He wasn't used to positive attention after being the village pariah for so many years, but he had to admit that it felt nice not to have dirty looks shot at him every time he passed by someone. He responded politely to everyone who had greeted him and thanked him, albeit a little sheepishly. Having Sakura and Sasuke there with him helped him not feel too awkward. Sasuke led the way, since he was the one most involved with aiding in the construction. The trio had talked the whole way towards the residential district, parting ways once Sakura was near her home. Sasuke led them to Naruto's newly rebuilt apartment complex, which didn't look nearly as shoddy as he remembered it. Some parts could do with a coat of paint, but it was shaping up to be a rather nice complex. Well, here we are. It's in the same place, so you know where to go. I'll see you later, Naruto, Sasuke said before he handed him a key and headed off in the opposite direction of Naruto's apartment complex. Naruto waved goodbye before he stepped into his new old apartment. It seems roomier than I remember, he thought aloud. He shrugged and chalked it up to the generosity of the village populace. It was astounding how quickly things were being rebuilt. His apartment already had furniture, a coat of paint, and electricity to boot. Naruto looked in the cupboards, hoping to find some food, preferably some instant ramen, only to be met with the empty stare of the back paneling of said cupboards. He let out an audible groan. He shouldn't be too surprised. No doubt, the village was sustaining itself on the food banks it had set aside for natural disasters, so food would be scarcer than they were used to until things got back up and running. Still, you would think that non-perishables would be in abundance, he muttered to himself. He realized he was still wearing his sunglasses and removed them, setting them on his kitchen table. He decided to head to the bathroom to examine his new eyes further. Naruto stared at his reflection, finding it hard to recognize himself. The purple ringed orbs were so foreign on his face, their intense gaze unwavering. This is gonna take some getting used to, he thought as he let out a sigh. Despite the bizarre appearance of the Rinnegan, his eyes still communicated some degree of emotion. He could tell that his eyes displayed the confusion he was feeling about his old blue eyes being replaced by these relics of power. He stared at himself for a few moments more, trying to sort through the cacophony of thoughts whirling through his mind. He let out another sigh before heading towards his bedroom. Naruto sat himself down on his bed, pondering what had happened during his fight with Nagato and afterwards. He figured that Nagato must have had something to do with this. He was the last person to have possessed the Rinnegan, after all. The only question was, what exactly did he do? He couldn't have done much. He was practically on death's door even before he used the Rinne Tensei. Naruto rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. He thought about his father, the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. He didn't see any dojutsu when he met him in his mindscape. Then again, he wasn't sure if the souls of the dead still retained their dojutsu when they passed on, or in his father's case, sealed a portion of their chakra within their son. His thoughts drifted towards his mother. Naruto shut his eyes as he felt the beginnings of tears forming. He knew who his father was, at long last, but still his heart ached. For as long as he could remember, he had wanted to know who his mother was. He wanted to know if she loved him. Despite not knowing her, he knew that deep down he loved her. He wondered if maybe the Rinnegan came from her, maybe it was her bloodline. He shook his head, remembering the conversation he had with Kakashi. Still, some part of him hoped that his eyes were a gift from his mother. Naruto's train of thought was interrupted as he heard his apartment door being opened. His eyes snapped open as he sprung up off his bed, jogging towards his living room. His jaw went slack as he beheld the last Uchiha of Konoha taking his sandals off, a bag slung over his shoulder. Naruto could see scrolls peeking out of the top of the bag. Sasuke took notice of his teammate, turning to the blonde with an even gaze as Naruto stared at him incredulously. Sasuke? What are you doing here? How did you get in? The door, Sasuke replied plainly. Naruto groaned. I mean, how did you open the door? With the doorknob. I turned it with my hand, the Uchiha explained dryly. Naruto slapped his hand against his forehead, growing more irritated. I meant, how the hell did you unlock the door to my apartment, wise ass? This, Sasuke stated as he held up a key. Naruto's brow furrowed as he frowned at his teammate. Why the fuck do you have a key to my apartment, Uchiha? He spat. Sasuke maintained his gaze, his onyx eyes unmoving. He had one hell of a poker face. It's not just your apartment, Uzumaki, he said evenly. Naruto's eyes narrowed as his brow furrowed even further. His mouth moved, but he found no words. He stood there looking like a fish out of water. I live here too, moron, Sasuke stated flatly. Naruto cocked his head. His jaw went slack as his brow furrowed even further. He was utterly speechless. Sasuke rolled his eyes as he let out a vexed sigh. I'm moving in with you, you great lummox, he said, his tone only showing slight irritation that the blonde was unable to put two and two together. Naruto's head straightened as his face went from one of irritation to one of curiosity. You're moving in with me? But why? Why not stay in the Uchiha compound like you had been? Well, I was considering it. But the fact of the matter is that place has a lot of memories. Not all of them are good, either, Sasuke explained. Naruto nodded, processing his response. Sasuke had a point. It was just shy of a miracle he hadn't had a full-on nervous breakdown from living in a ghost town. He knew Sasuke loved his mother dearly, and her memory was likely one of the few that kept him afloat. Naruto had always made it a point to visit him at the Uchiha compound now and again, or to invite him over to his place for tea or just to talk. I think it's time I let that part of my past go, Sasuke began. We've been best friends since my mom found out you were living in that apartment after you got kicked out of the orphanage. You were the only one who checked up on me after my family was killed. Hell, you let me stay with you so I wouldn't be left to my own devices. I know you were there when I told Sakura this, but in the time after the massacre, when you were the one looking after me, that's when I really started to see you as my brother. His tone was even, typical of the Uchiha air, but Naruto knew that he was being sincere. He offered Sasuke a small smile, his purple rippled eyes softening. Sasuke started removing the scrolls from his bag. We've always looked out for each other, so I figured we would keep that up. I'll likely return to the Uchiha compound one day. When that will be, I don't really know. Maybe I'll revive the Uchiha clan someday and move back there to wipe the slate clean, but I suppose I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. There was an air of wistfulness as he spoke of his former home and the possibility of reviving one of the three great clans of Konoha. Naruto eyed the scrolls that Sasuke had set on the table. What's with the scrolls? These, Sasuke gestured towards the scrolls in question. Our storage scrolls. I stopped by the food bank to get us some groceries. Along with dinner for tonight. Naruto raised an eyebrow as Sasuke unfurled one of the scrolls and channeled chakra into the storage seal. With a poof and a cloud of smoke, a pair of instant ramen cups appeared. Naruto's face stretched into an ear-to-ear smile at the sight. I don't love this stuff as much as you, but I know that you would save this flavor for special occasions, he said to his elated teammate. The smile on Naruto's face was comically huge. Plus, I like the soy sauce flavor. Reminds me of the shoyu from Ichiraku. So, I figured we'd celebrate you waking up and the whole saving the village thing, he explained as he put on a kettle to boil. Naruto opened his mouth to thank Sasuke before a thought invaded his mind. Wait, where are you going to sleep? There's only one bedroom, so one of us is gonna need to take the couch, he wondered. Sasuke pointed towards the hallway. Naruto hadn't noticed that there was another door across from his. Naruto cocked his head, staring down the hallway. It was no wonder the place seemed bigger. It was meant for two people. The kettle whistled, breaking Naruto out of his stupor. He turned to see Sasuke pouring the boiling water into the two ramen cups, setting pairs of chopsticks on top of the paper lids. The two sat across from each other as Naruto gave his new roommate a foxy grin. Sasuke returned with a smile of his own. The two ate in comfortable silence before turning in for the night. Naruto and Sasuke were awoken by loud knocking on their apartment door. Both groaned as they trudged out of their beds to meet each other in the hallway. Naruto still had his sleeping cap on, while Sasuke had pushed his red sleep mask up to his forehead. They regarded each other with heavy eyes before turning towards the living room to answer the door. Both were grumbling about who could possibly have the nerve to wake them up not long after sunrise. Naruto opened the door to an out-of-breath Sakura. The two boys turned to each other, each raising an eyebrow. Naruto sleepily rubbed an eye. Sakura, what's going on? Why are you so out of breath? He asked before yawning. Sakura took a deep breath to try and steady her heart, which threatened to pound its way out of her chest. Come with me, quickly, she began, as her lungs fought for precious oxygen. It's Lady Tsunade, she's awake. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes bulged as their jaws went slack. The duo turned tail and sprinted to their rooms to throw on their clothes and headbands. Naruto was about to step out of the apartment before Sasuke tapped on his shoulder, holding his sunglasses. Naruto winced and put them on, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. The trio set out, leaping over rooftops as Sakura led the way. Naruto had found it strange that they were heading towards the great stone faces, but figured that there were parts of the village that were unknown to him. His days as a prankster had meant he found plenty of places to hide from Anbu and other shinobi. Sakura had led her teammates to a hidden entrance below the face of the first Hokage that was guarded by Anbu. After verifying their identities and their reasons for being there, they were granted entry. The Anbu agent channeled chakra into a hidden seal, making the stone give way to a heavy metal door that creaked as it opened. The door slammed shut behind them as Sakura led her teammates down a stone corridor. Naruto couldn't help but study his surroundings in awe. If a place like this exists, I wonder how many other secret locations there are in the village that only Granny and Anbu know about, he mused to himself. Sasuke kept his gaze straight ahead for the most part, only allowing his eyes to glance at the various doors and hallways that they passed by. He had to admit, the idea of having a location like this hidden in essentially plain sight was impressive. He never would have guessed that the same mountainside that the great stone faces sat upon held a complex like this. The three Chunin stopped at another door guarded by two Anbu. Once again, they were asked to verify who they were before they were let inside. They stepped into a small stone hospital room, where they were greeted by a flustered Shizen trying to cajole Tsunade, who was standing up and disconnecting herself from her four-drip, back into bed. The trio grimaced at the all-too-familiar situation. They had joked amongst themselves in the past that Shizen was like Tsunade's babysitter, and scenarios like this only furthered that joke into a sad truth. "Granny! You're awake!" And standing up, the blonde greeted cheerfully, though he ended on a slightly apprehensive note. Sakura and Sasuke bowed, the former glaring at Naruto before grabbing his head and pushing it into a deep bow. "Oh, come on, you three. Raise your heads." "While I appreciate the respect," Tsunade said as she shot a look at her pseudo-grandson. "I'm not in the tower right now, and it's just us and the Anbu outside my door," she finished with a small smile. The three Chunin straightened and nodded, returning her smile, while Naruto wore his signature grin. "It'll take more than chakra exhaustion to keep me down. Besides, I've got a village to protect," the buxom Hokage stated resolutely. No sooner did the door open once again, revealing the cycloptic Jonin leader of Team 7. Kakashi gave a small bow to the Hokage, which she received with a nod. "Now then, as good as it is to see you all alive and well, we have a few things to discuss. Unfortunately, the Hokage Tower hasn't been rebuilt in its entirety just yet, so this room will have to do. Don't worry, nothing will leave this room. Not only is it carved into solid rock, but there are soundproofing seals on the walls, floor, and ceiling. Now then. I believe you," Tsunade gestured towards Naruto. "Have something rather interesting to show me," she stated coolly. The blonde gulped as he quickly glanced at his teammates, who offered him small nods of encouragement. Naruto took a breath before nodding to his Hokage and removing his sunglasses. Tsunade's features set into a hard, analytical expression as she studied Naruto's newly acquired Rinnegan. She approached him slowly before gently grabbing his chin, tilting his head backwards, left, and right before releasing him. "Look left, look right," she directed as he did so, revealing the extent of the muted purple and its ripples. Tsunade hummed as she observed. "So, it's true, you've acquired the Rinnegan. Kakashi and Sakura told me that you don't remember what happened, but just to verify, do you remember what happened and how you came to have these eyes?" Naruto meekly shook his head. He told her about his conversation with Nagato and how he told him that he could bring about peace, but that he would face hatred, pain, and death in the future. After that, the world spun, and he was out like a light. Sakura and Shizen had informed her of the state of Naruto's wounds when he was first brought back by Kakashi. Naruto had mentioned Nagato's friend, Konan, in passing. She silently noted that this Konan could possibly be connected to Naruto's acquisition of the Rinnegan, and she would follow up on her suspicion later. Tsunade pursed her lips before taking a deep breath, speaking with a soft voice. "Naruto, do you understand what those eyes are capable of?" Naruto stared at the ground before shaking his head. "The most I remember is what Katsuyu explained to me, what I saw during the fight, and what happened with the jutsu that revived everyone. Other than that, I'm pretty clueless," Naruto dejectedly explained. He snapped his gaze up to meet Tsunade's honey-colored eyes, determination burning in his own. "But that's not gonna stop me from training to use them as best I can. I asked Kakashi-sensei, and he said he would help me. That counts for something, right?" A smirk tugged at the corner of Tsunade's mouth. She ruffled her pseudo-grandson's hair. "That's the spirit, brat." The others couldn't help but smile at Naruto's resolve. Kakashi stepped forward. "Lady Tsunade, regarding Naruto's training, I'd like to request permission to use Training Ground 44 in addition to Training Ground 3. Given the circumstances, I think it's best that as few people are aware of Naruto's dojutsu as possible," he stated. Tsunade placed a hand on her hip, considering the Jonin's request. The Hokage shook her head after a pregnant silence. "While I completely understand your line of thinking, I'm afraid I'm going to have to deny your request. As you said, given the circumstances, it's best that as few people as possible are made aware of Naruto's eyes. Training Ground 44, while outside the village and away from prying eyes, is almost exclusively used as a stage for the Chunin exams. Using it as an actual training ground might indirectly draw unnecessary attention from certain parties," she answered, her voice dripping with disgust at her last words. Kakashi caught her drift, and any protests he had thought to make were shelved. He had heard of Danzo and his meddling ways. He had witnessed it in the way he had defied Hiruzen, the way he operated Root, and the way he had proposed turning Naruto into a weapon like Suna had done to their own Jinchuriki. The war hawk learning of Naruto's Rinnegan could only lead to bad things for his student. Kakashi bowed his head. I understand, Lady Hokage, Tsunade hummed in response. Now then, I'm going to go with Shizen and see to some of the patients personally. Sakura, you take the day off. From what I've heard, you, Haku, and Ino have done a superb job in assisting Shizen. I'll have to let them know that they should take today off as well. Sakura gave her master a relieved smile and bowed her head. Naruto, you'd best head off and start figuring out those eyes of yours. Just be careful, alright? The older blonde said with a warm smile. Naruto nodded with his signature foxy grin before he replaced the sunglasses on his face. Team 7 bowed once more to the Hokage before setting off. The site of Training Ground 3 was a welcome one for the members of Team 7. It being just outside the village proper had left it untouched from Pain's attack. Sasuke, Sakura, and a sunglasses-clad Naruto walked alongside their sensei towards the familiar stream, memories drifting back to them with each step. Their first bell test, the long hours of training before the Chunin exams, and the second bell test after Naruto and Sasuke's return from their respective training trips had all taken place here. The group came to a stop just shy of the banks of the stream. Now then. Naruto, I know this might seem bothersome at first, but just trust me, Kakashi began. Naruto gave a firm nod. I'd like to start with basic chakra control exercises. We can't be too sure how your Rinnegan has affected your chakra network since it wasn't acquired through conventional means. First, try climbing one of the trees. If you make it to the top, head to the stream and walk on the water. If you find you're able to walk on the water just fine, then try running on the water. Sasuke and I will be observing you with our Sharingan active to see if there's anything unusual with your chakra. Sakura will be on standby in case something does happen. Go ahead when you're ready, Kakashi instructed as he lifted his headband to reveal his other eye. Naruto gave a quick nod before jogging over to a decently sized tree as Kakashi and Sasuke activated their Sharingan, carefully observing Naruto's chakra flow. Naruto channeled chakra into his feet and took one step, then another up the tree, climbing it with ease. After reaching the top, he jumped down and jogged towards the bank of the stream. He once again channeled chakra into his feet and took a step onto the surface of the water, finding himself able to walk with no problems. He started jogging back and forth over the water's surface, going so far as to sprint and dodge as though he were dodging hits. What do you think so far, Sasuke? The silver-haired Jonin prompted. Nothing out of the ordinary, from what I can tell. Are you seeing a slightly denser concentration of chakra around his eyes, or is it just me? No, I see it too. It doesn't seem like it's a big drain on his chakra reserves, though. It almost seems like Kakashi trailed off, like his body is adapting to it, Sasuke finished. Kakashi hummed in acknowledgement. Having felt like his chakra control was still where it was before, Naruto stepped off the water's surface and jogged back towards his team. Kakashi and Sasuke examined the blonde, looking for anything abnormal aside from the way his chakra was concentrating around his eyes. Well, looks like your basic chakra control is about where it was before. We'll go over your elemental chakra after we get through some other things, the copy ninja explained. I want you to try and channel chakra into your eyes, like you're trying to activate them. Naruto raised an inquisitive eyebrow at his sensei's instruction. But I thought you said I couldn't turn the Rinnegan on and off like the Sharingan? That's true. Based on what Sasuke and I saw, it looks as though your chakra is passively concentrating around your eyes, which could account for your improved eyesight that you mentioned when you first woke up, Kakashi explained. Naruto's brows raised in realization. However, what I'm referring to is actively channeling chakra into your eyes, similar to how I channel chakra into my Sharingan eye to take advantage of its abilities. Naruto absorbed the words of his sensei. He knew Kakashi's Sharingan was a transplant, so it was different from Sasuke's in that it technically couldn't be turned off in the same way an Uchiha could turn it off. Naruto nodded, formed the ram seal, and focused on channeling chakra into his eyes. He looked at his teammates and sensei and let out a yelp. Holy crap! Is that chakra? I can see your chakra? The blonde cried. Behind his sunglasses, his eyes were as wide as they could be, his face was contorted in an expression of horror and bewilderment. The now visible chakra looked like a blue fire raging beneath his team's skins. He could see that chakra was concentrated around both of Sasuke's eyes and Kakashi's left eye, like what the two Sharingan users had described to him. Calm down, blockhead. Just stop actively channeling chakra to your eyes and you won't be able to see ours, the Uchiha heir explained with an exasperated sigh. The blonde heeded his teammate's advice and cut the flow, his vision returning to normal. Naruto heaved a sigh of relief, wiping his forehead. Well, can you tell us what it looked like, Naruto? Kakashi prompted. Naruto explained that he could see the concentrated chakra in Kakashi's and Sasuke's eyes as they mentioned, and how it was visible beneath their skin. This time Sakura spoke up. Were you able to see the full network with the Tenketsu? Or just the chakra itself? Just the chakra. It kinda looked like blue fire. You know, like how raw chakra looks, Naruto explained. Sakura nodded as Kakashi cleared his throat to get his blonde student's attention. I know I told you to ease into training, but I'm curious. Do you think you'd be able to spar with Sasuke, Naruto? Taijutsu only. It's perfectly alright if you don't feel up to. Of course I'm up to it. I have to prove that my dojutsu can be just as good as that duck-haired jerk. Naruto squawked, cutting off Kakashi. The Jonin gave a nervous masked smile as Sakura groaned. Sasuke simply harumphed as he strode over in front of his boisterous teammate before falling into his taijutsu stance, his Sharingan blazing. Kakashi raised a hand to pause and address Naruto. Try fighting while channeling chakra into your eyes. I'll keep observing with my Sharingan to see how it changes things, the silver-haired ninja instructed before he and Sakura put some distance between themselves and the two eager combatants. Kakashi raised his arm as Naruto channeled chakra into his Rinnegan, causing Sasuke to light up like a blue torch while the blonde fell into his own taijutsu stance. The two charged at each other as soon as Kakashi dropped his arm. Sasuke was fast. His first strike was a feint for Naruto's face. The real attack came not a second later, a quick jab aimed at his unguarded midsection. The blonde was already moving, parrying the jab with a knee aimed for Sasuke's chest. The Uchiha quickly blocked with his free hand, halting Naruto's momentum before narrowly dodging a blow from the blonde aimed for his head. Sasuke's Sharingan gave him the ability to see everything as though it were in slow motion. Combined with his speed, he was nearly untouchable. This meant he could sneak jabs when openings presented themselves. The two pushed off each other, creating some distance. Sasuke eyed the blonde, wondering how he was able to see his blow coming. Naruto tried to contain his excitement. He knew just how fast Sasuke was, but he had seen his attack coming and blocked it, something he was hardly ever able to achieve. As soon as they charged each other, Naruto felt the world slow down. Sasuke's normally blindingly fast movements had slowed considerably, giving Naruto time to react to the feint and block Sasuke's attack. The two charged head-on once more. Naruto's right arm pulled back, ready to deliver a crushing punch. Sasuke let the attack barely miss him before he found his opening. He brought his fist upwards, gunning for Naruto's solar plexus. Sasuke's breath hitched as Naruto caught the fist meant to knock the wind out of him. The blonde went for an uppercut, only for it to be caught by the Uchiha. Sasuke leaned backwards, positioning himself to smash both of his feet at Naruto's chest. The blonde grunted as the blow connected with a resounding thud, sending both flying from each other once again, Sasuke landing more gracefully than Naruto did. Naruto grit his teeth as pain spiderwebbed from his sternum. Sasuke simply stood back, studying his teammate and opponent. Both panted as adrenaline coursed through their veins, their hearts pounding in their chests. The Uchiha was dumbfounded as to how Naruto was able to block another of his attacks, especially after telegraphing such a heavy first move. Naruto cursed under his breath at the fact that Sasuke was able to land that hit. Naruto and Sasuke barreled towards each other. Sasuke aimed a knee at Naruto's thigh. This time, rather than block, Naruto took the hit, wincing as the blow connected. The blonde swung right. Sasuke dodged a left hook, feeling knuckles graze the tip of his nose. The Uchiha aimed a punch at Naruto's kidney. The blonde saw it coming and parried, swinging his right fist at his opponent's head. Sasuke ducked forward to avoid the hook. Suddenly, pain rang through his skull as Naruto smashed his head into Sasuke's. The sickening crunch of the collision echoed through the combatants and spectators' ears alike, eliciting a grunt from Sasuke and a wince from Sakura. The rivals pushed off once more, both clutching their heads in a daze. Sasuke groaned as he got his bearings, while Naruto shook his head to make the stars he was seeing go away. They stood and glared at each other for a moment before dropping back into their respective taijutsu stances, fists clenched before the ninja launched themselves at each other. Dominant hands cocked back to deliver a final, decisive punch. A roar erupted from both as they closed the distance. They anticipated their blows connecting with the other's head, only for their fists to be caught by their silver-haired sensei. The opponents screeched to a halt, each staring at their Jonin sensei, dumbstruck. "I think that's enough," Kakashi stated flatly. Sasuke's blazing crimson eyes faded back to onyx, while Naruto cut the chakra flowed to his own concealed eyes. Kakashi released their fists after the two Chunin visibly relaxed, lowering his headband to cover his Sharingan eye. "Not bad, Whiskers," Sasuke praised with a smirk. Naruto shot a scowl that was chased by his own smirk. "Not bad yourself, slowpoke," he sneered. Sasuke only scoffed at Naruto's jab. "It was definitely interesting watching the two of you spar," Kakashi began before turning to Naruto, his tone even. "I had expected your Rinnegan to enhance your perception, but keeping up with a Sharingan user was surprising, to say the least." Sakura jogged towards her team, immediately looking over her teammates for any serious injuries. "Neither of you broke anything, did you?" she prompted. Naruto and Sasuke shook their heads as Sakura let out a small sigh of relief. Her teammates' spars could get intense, even for those that were watching. Their rivalry was such that it hindered their ability to hold back during their matches. While it made for effective training, one or both often walked away with something broken, fractured, dislocated, bleeding, or badly bruised. Naruto had joked that it was practical exercises for her medical ninjutsu, a remark that had earned him a smack to the back of the head. "I might not have a Sharingan, but from the sidelines, it was impressive watching you two duke it out," Sakura said, a proud smile tugging at her mouth. Naruto really gave Sasuke a run for his money, especially with that headbutt, the kunoichi pointed out. Naruto beamed at the praise from his pink-haired teammate. Sasuke let out an exasperated sigh. Yeah, I gotta hand it to you, blockhead. You really surprised me when you blocked that first jab. Also, that head hurt, jerk, he admitted, muttering the last few words. Naruto gave a foxy grin before Kakashi spoke up. There's something else I think would be worth trying. Try creating a few shadow clones, he instructed. Naruto gave a quick nod before throwing his hands into the familiar hand seal. 3 shadow clones popped into existence in clouds of smoke, clad in the same orange and black jumpsuit and sunglasses as the original. Naruto and his copies immediately started stumbling, as though they had lost their sense of balance. The shadow clones disappeared in puffs of smoke as Naruto fell onto his behind, dazed. The blonde ninja groaned. Okay, Al. But also, what the hell? Kakashi raised an inquisitive eyebrow. What happened? I have no idea. Once my shadow clones appeared, it was like I could see what they were seeing. Except I saw everything at once, Naruto explained, rubbing his temples. Kakashi raised a hand to his chin. Interesting. It seems that the shared field of vision that Pain had with his bodies is present with your shadow clones. Naruto considered his sensei's words as he felt the throbbing pain begin to subside. I guess that makes sense, since I don't have those bodies like he did, he reasoned aloud before a realization hit him. Wait a second, this means I won't be able to use shadow clones to learn stuff faster. The Jonin shrugged, offering his student a sympathetic expression. I'm afraid not. It seems that's one of the unintended trade-offs. But you have quite a strong work ethic, so I have complete faith that you'll make up for the lack of ability to use shadow clones to learn jutsu, he placated. Naruto pouted, grumbling about his secret technique being ruined by his eyes. That, or you'll find a way to work around it, the silver-haired Jonin offered, his eye crinkling in its distinctive manner. His students returned the expression, Naruto offering his signature toothy grin. Naruto rose to his feet, scratching the back of his head pensively. I guess the first step would be to figure out how to use my shadow clones with this whole shared field of vision, he thought aloud. Kakashi nodded sagely. I'll keep helping you with matters regarding ninjutsu and chakra manipulation. I think Sasuke would be a great sparring partner, and can help improve your taijutsu, given that both your dojutsu give you enhanced perceptive abilities. Since Sakura will be busy in the coming days assisting Lady Tsunade and Shizen, we'll need to hold off on including her in your specific training, he explained, noticing the kunoichi's face drop slightly. But I do have something in store that involves her Kekkei Genkai, he offered with a light tone, causing Sakura's eyes to snap to her sensei, a smile spreading across her face. Kakashi gave his students a masked smile. Now then, I think that's enough for today. Naruto, you're free to do some individual training with your shadow clones and getting used to the shared field of vision, but don't overdo it. We don't know how that will affect you just yet, he advised. Naruto nodded. Great, let's try and meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm off to help oversee construction of the Hokage Tower. With that, Kakashi left with a wave of his hand and a swirl of leaves. Naruto had elected to stay behind, determined to acclimate himself to at least one clone's shared field of vision. He reassured his teammates that they could head back home to relax, but they refused to leave him by himself. Sakura cited that he would need her should something happen, since she was a medic. Sasuke had teased that the blonde needed a babysitter, which made Naruto scowl while Sakura giggled. Sasuke and Sakura mostly observed, offering suggestions here and there to their teammate. Sasuke broke the news to the pink-haired kunoichi that he moved in with Naruto, giving her the same explanation for his decision that he gave his new roommate the first time. Sakura squealed with joy, causing Sasuke to turn as red as the tomatoes he so enjoyed. Naruto's focus broke momentarily, but he remained vigilant in his quest to master one aspect of his Rinnegan. Team 7 remained at the training ground until sunset, parting ways at the midpoint between Sakura's apartment and Sasuke and Naruto's. Sakura felt like her day off was well spent. It had been a while since she had gotten a chance to spend time with her friends, particularly to sit and talk with Sasuke. She had been impressed with how well Naruto had done in his spar against Sasuke and found herself in awe of his work ethic. She and Sasuke had lost count of how many times Naruto had created a single shadow clone. Eventually he was able to hold it and keep it from dispersing immediately, but he was still getting used to simultaneously seeing what his clone saw on top of what he saw. It was disorienting, to say the least. Sasuke had been impressed that Naruto had progressed as much as he did in just a few hours, a true testament to his resolve. The two young men discussed their options for refining Naruto's taijutsu further over a dinner of miso soup. The Uzumaki had whined about the lack of ramen, but he secretly enjoyed Sasuke's cooking, and the miso soup was tasty. Though, he found Sasuke's side dish of tomatoes to be a bit odd. Sasuke vehemently insisted that his roommates simply didn't understand. Sasuke was up before Naruto this morning, preparing a breakfast of eggs over rice with miso soup. Now that the two were roommates, Sasuke swore he would break his friend's habit of eating ramen for every meal, even if he had to do so while Naruto kicked and screamed. There would undoubtedly be some whining from the blonde about the lack of instant ramen, but Sasuke knew that Naruto enjoyed his miso soup, even if he didn't admit it. It had taken Sasuke a good number of attempts before he was able to make miso soup like his mother had. It wasn't quite the same, nor would it ever be, but he liked to think of it as a faithful recreation, one that reminded him of her warmth. Naruto emerged from his room donning his usual black and orange tracksuit, stifling a yawn. He sleepily looked over the spread that was on the table, a small frown marring his face. What, no ramen? Sasuke shook his head as he set down Naruto's bowl of soup. Nope. You're going to start eating like a normal person for both of our sakes, the Uchiha answered plainly. Naruto crossed his arms and pouted, making Sasuke roll his eyes. Oh, come on, you big baby. Look, there's even miso soup. I know you like my miso soup. Sasuke smirked as he raised his eyebrows suggestively. Like hell I do. Naruto fumed. Oh? Is that why you cleaned your bowl last night? Sasuke raised an eyebrow. I was hungry from training. You went and got seconds. I have a big appetite and you know it, saucepan. The blonde spat. Sasuke's eye twitched before he crossed his arms in a huff. Regardless. This is a hell of a lot better for you than instant ramen. With that, he sat down and brought his hands together, offering his gratitude for the meal. Naruto grumbled before sitting across from his roommate and doing the same. The two cracked their eggs over their rice, mixing it with chopsticks and digging in. As he was eating, he noticed that Sasuke had given him a sweet umeboshi as a dessert, while Sasuke had a small grape tomato. The blonde smiled to himself. Sasuke's love of tomatoes wasn't unlike Naruto's love of ramen. The two ate in comfortable silence before setting out to their training ground. For all the years that Kakashi had been the leader and sensei of Team 7, he never seemed to break his habit of arriving late. Naruto and Sasuke sat against a tree, enjoying the cool shade it offered. Naruto was sharpening one of his kunai, while Sasuke was watching and listening for birds, as well as any sign of their sensei's arrival. Naruto groaned. For crying out loud! It's been 2 hours since Kakashi-sensei was supposed to show up. Sasuke hummed in acknowledgement. Would you expect anything less of him? He's been this way since we were genin. Naruto grumbled in reluctant agreement before he sprang to his feet. I'm gonna practice using my shadow clones. I was close to being able to use one yesterday. Just don't push yourself. Sakura's busy helping Lady Tsunade and the other medics today, so she won't be able to bail you out if you hurt yourself, the Uchiha cautioned, shifting to keep an eye on his teammate. The orange-clad ninja threw his hands into the cross seal as a copy of him popped into existence. Both Narutos stumbled before they regained their footing. Hey! I'm doing it! I can see what my clone sees! He cheered. Sasuke gave a small smile. Nice job, he congratulated before bringing a hand to his chin for a moment. See if you can move the clone further away from you. Or better yet, move it behind you. You could have a 360-degree field of vision that way. Naruto considered his friend's advice, nodding in agreement after a quick pause. The shadow clone moved behind Naruto, eliciting an overjoyed cackle from the Uzumaki. Holy shit! This is so cool! I can see in front and behind me at the same time. Sasuke couldn't help but chuckle at the genuine excitement radiating from his friend. See if you can make one more clone, the Uchiha called. Naruto nodded, his smile never leaving his face as he formed the cross seal once more. Another copy of Naruto appeared, causing the original and the newly made clone to stumble. The first clone was surprisingly unmoving. The two quickly regained their bearings, causing Naruto to cheer loudly once more. Naruto's mouth was pulled into an ear-to-ear smile, his eyes crinkling beneath his sunglasses. This is amazing! I can see 3 points of view at once. Nobody will be able to sneak up on me at this rate. Sasuke rose, walking over towards the blonde ninja and his copies. Alright, move your clones so you're standing in a triangle facing away from each other, and tell me if you can see me. I'm gonna walk in a circle around you. Naruto gave a quick nod as Sasuke began walking. Excitement welled up within the Rinnegan bearer. Sasuke never left his sight, quite literally. As soon as he stepped out of view of one set of eyes, he came into view of another. His heart pounded against his chest at the exhilarating feeling of having honed one of his dojutsu's abilities. So, were you able to see me? Sasuke asked as he stepped away. The original Naruto nodded with a face-splitting smile. Sasuke couldn't help but chuckle as the shadow clones dispelled in puffs of smoke. Their celebration was cut short by an ANBU ninja appearing in front of Naruto. The blonde ninja stumbled back with a yelp, while Sasuke flinched at the sudden appearance. The Uchiha was perceptive and considered himself hard to get the drop on, but ANBU had a way of flying under the radar. Naruto always said that ANBU gave him the creeps because of their masks and the way they talked. Naruto Uzumaki. Your presence is urgently requested by the Hokage. Come with me, the masked man recited. Naruto eyed the ANBU dubiously before giving a nod. He gestured to Sasuke to come with him. Just as Sasuke took a step, the ANBU held up his hand, stopping Sasuke in his tracks. I'm afraid the only one I was instructed to retrieve was Naruto Uzumaki. You'll have to stay behind, Master Uchiha. Naruto glared at the ANBU, his eyes boring holes through his sunglasses and the porcelain-colored mask. Either Sasuke comes with me or I'm not going with you, he growled. The ANBU considered his options. He didn't want to have to use force, so he yielded to the blonde ninja's demand. Very well, he can come as far as the Hokage will allow. Understand that there may be consequences if he oversteps any boundaries, he stated dryly. Naruto and Sasuke both nodded before they set off with body flickers. The two Chunin were led to the same entrance beneath the first Hokage's stone face. Sasuke was hassled about why he was there when Naruto was the one summoned, but was granted passage once Naruto staked his claim that he would go no further without his friend. They were once again led through stone corridors, though this time they were taken even deeper into the complex. Tsunade was waiting just beside another heavy metal door, arms crossed and foot tapping impatiently. She threw a scowl at Naruto's direction, causing both him and Sasuke to visibly flinch. You! First, why is the Uchiha here? She barked. Naruto raised his hands in a placating gesture, knowing full well what the consequences would be if he further irritated the woman. I just figured if it's important, he ought to be here too. Tsunade glowered at the two of them. Sasuke's mouth was drawn into a tight line, while Naruto forced a smile. Sweat beaded on both of their foreheads, the air thick with tension. Tsunade considered the implications of having the Uchiha heir present. True, he was technically a clan head, but he was still young. On the other hand, he was one of the people closest to Naruto, who was the reason for this whole snafu she'd been dealing with in the first place. Tsunade pointed a finger at Sasuke. You can come in. But you're a fly on the wall. If I hear so much as a peep out of you, the older blonde cracked her knuckles to drive her point home. Sasuke swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded quickly. And you? You'd better have a damn good explanation for what's behind this door, brat, she growled. Naruto's brow furrowed as he cocked his head. Tsunade simply gestured to one of the ANBU guarding the door. The masked ninja applied chakra to the seal that locked the door, the hinges groaning in protest as it swung open. Tsunade ushered the two Chunin inside before the door shut behind them with a clang. Naruto blanched as he beheld a familiar head of pale blue hair, decorated by a single periwinkle paper rose. Her cloak was folded on the back of the chair she was sitting on, revealing a near skin-tight, sleeveless top. The zipper ended around the bottom of her sternum, flaring open and exposing some of her midriff, framing the 4 piercings surrounding her navel. They seemed to match her elaborate piercings' color and style. Her hands lay folded on the metal table, nails painted the same shade of amber as her eyes. They were duller than he remembered, reflecting the exhaustion that she wore on her face. A chakra suppression seal adorned her forehead, preventing her from escaping or attempting anything rash. Both Naruto and Sasuke were taken aback at just how beautiful she was. You wouldn't be able to tell me why this member of the Akatsuki showed up at the main gate looking for you, would you, brat? Tsunade interrogated, a vein on her forehead bulging. Naruto winced before he shook his head, avoiding the Hokage's intense gaze, but still feeling the hole she was boring into his head. He turned to look at the woman from Amigakure. I remember you. Konan, why are you here? He prompted, sitting in the chair across from her. So you do know this woman? Tsunade shouted. Naruto flinched and nodded. I met her after my fight with Pain. It's a little complicated, Granny. I'll explain it later, he assured. Tsunade huffed before reluctantly nodding. He felt guilty not telling the Hokage everything at that moment, but he didn't want to further incriminate Konan. He also wanted answers. He returned his focus back to the blue-haired woman in front of him. First of all, I'm no longer with the Akatsuki. Second, I was looking for you, she stated, her voice slightly hoarse. Naruto sighed. I gather that you were looking for me, but why? The woman's head dropped slightly, her hair falling to frame her face. Nagato asked me to find you, she said with a hint of sadness. The room fell dead silent at her claim. Nagato asked you to? But why? The blonde asked. Because of your eyes, Naruto, Konan answered, her voice barely above a whisper. Naruto's eyes widened as he stared at the blue-haired woman, taking in a sharp breath. Sasuke stared at her incredulously, while Tsunade cocked an eyebrow, leaning against one of the walls next to Sasuke. You know about my eyes? He stammered. Naruto struggled to sort through the melange of emotions he was feeling. He remembered the story that Nagato had told him about how he came to meet Konan and Yahiko. He knew what it felt like to be alone, but he was lucky that he never knew true hunger the way Nagato had. Neither had he known the horrors of war, much less watching your parents die in front of you the way he had. Not even Sasuke knew that pain. He had found them dead. Despite the common ground between them, Naruto felt resentment towards Konan. She was a member of the organization that had kidnapped his friend, murdered his master and Shikamaru-sensei, and destroyed his village. Worse still was the fact that she somehow knew about his Rinnegan, something that was meant to be an S-class secret. Yet, some small voice in him told him to try to let the past go, to try and see the good and forgive her, even forgive Nagato. He set those thoughts aside, trying to focus on the moment at hand. He needed answers. How do you know about my eyes? He questioned softly. Konan raised her head, meeting the blank gaze of Naruto's sunglasses with her own soft amber eyes. Do you remember what Nagato told you? Sasuke and Tsunade's ears perked up, hanging on to Konan's every word. Naruto's mouth tightened into a thin line as he swallowed. He said that I could bring about peace in his place. The azure-haired woman gave a small nod. He gave you those eyes to help you do so, she said gently. Naruto stiffened as his breath hitched. Tsunade's brow furrowed as Sasuke's jaw went slack. All eyes were glued to Konan, who maintained a soft gaze on the stupefied blonde sitting across from her. What are you talking about? What do you mean he gave me these eyes? Naruto asked, fighting to keep his voice from quivering. His stomach was doing somersaults, his heartbeat pounded in his ears. Looks like Kakashi-sensei might have been right, he thought. Konan averted her gaze, focusing on her hands. A sigh escaped her lips as she spoke quietly. Before he died, Nagato said he wanted you to have his eyes. He sensed something was coming, and she swallowed the lump in her throat. He asked me to help give you his eyes, she finished as she tried to maintain her composure. Tsunade stepped forward as Naruto gaped at the woman. Are you meaning to say that you were the one who replaced his eyes with the Rinnegan? Amber met honey as Konan looked Tsunade in the eye before nodding. The Hokage stared at the blue-haired woman, trying her best to maintain her poker face as realization crept into her thoughts. Then that must explain how Tsunade was cut off by Naruto pointing at Konan, eyes ablaze beneath his sunglasses. Wait, just a damn minute. You mean you took my eyes out and just replaced them? He cried, his hand trembling. Konan's poker face was even better than Tsunade's. Her expression was unreadable as she nodded. Naruto noticed her eyes had softened as she looked at him, making him relax back into his chair. He was beginning to piece together what had happened after he blacked out. You knocked me unconscious, didn't you? Konan gave a single, quick nod. Naruto leaned forward, resting his cheek on a fist, the other hand palming his forehead. The blonde ninja stared at nothing in particular, lost in thought. On the one hand, he felt a sense of appreciation to Nagato for trusting him with such a powerful dojutsu, his own eyes, no less, and for believing that he could do what the redhead and his friends had originally set out to do. On the other hand, he hadn't asked for any of this. He hadn't asked for Nagato's Rinnegan, hadn't asked to carry the mantle of responsibility of bringing peace to the world. It felt comparable to his burden of being a Jinchuriki. The latter had had the greatest effect on his life up to this point, but being the third known bearer of the Rinnegan was a close second. He inwardly chuckled at the irony of not having a choice in either matter, though he reckoned having a powerful and legendary dojutsu essentially gifted to you was better than having a tailed beast sealed into you the same day you were born. He was brought out of his rumination by Konan's voice. Naruto, I don't expect you to fully trust me when your village doesn't trust me. But as I told the Anbu and your Hokage, I come here with no malice. I'm only trying to honor Nagato's wishes. I'm here, she took a deep breath. To help you train your Rinnegan. Naruto stared at the woman, as did Tsunade and Sasuke, all with an unreadable expression. The blonde Chunin sighed as he removed his sunglasses, looking Konan in her amber eyes with his purple rippled ones. She gasped quietly at the sight. She had expected him to make a full recovery, given the prowess of Tsunade and her protégés, but seeing Nagato's eyes in the blonde in person was jarring. Naruto took a deep breath. Konan, if I'm being honest, I don't know whether to thank you or curse you. The fact that I had no say in whether or not I had my eyes removed and replaced by Nagato's Rinnegan is a bit upsetting. Konan hung her head slightly, knowing full well that knocking him unconscious to perform an essentially forced field surgery was dirty, even for her. But I think I'm beginning to understand just how, important these eyes are. I'm pretty sure Nagato wouldn't have trusted these to me if he didn't believe in me, and the fact that he asked you to find me after the fact is proof of that, too. He shut his eyes, choosing his next words before opening his purple orbs slowly. That being said, I'm willing to take a leap of faith and accept your help, provided that Granny here agrees as well, he said, pointing to the buxom woman with his thumb. Tsunade let out an irritated growl at the use of his nickname for her. Konan's heart skipped a beat as she let out a bated breath, thanking him silently with a small smile. She and Naruto turned to the Hokage, each with a pleading gaze. The twin-tailed blonde crossed her arms, eyes darting between the two. Sasuke leaned in to whisper in her ear. Lady Tsunade, I think this would be a safe bet to make. She was the one who was closest to Nagato, who was the one controlling pain with the Rinnegan, after all. Tsunade threw a scowl at the Uchiha before she hummed in acknowledgement of his advice, raising a hand to her chin. He did have a point, after all. As problematic as it would be to have a former high-ranking Akatsuki member in the village, Sasuke did raise an important point. She had seen the Rinnegan in use for longer than anyone she knew besides Jiraiya. She contemplated the consequences of her potential decisions. On one hand, this woman could prove to be a valuable asset, and not just when it came to helping Naruto. She could give insider information about the Akatsuki and their members, veritable dossiers that would normally have required Jiraiya's spy network to sniff out. She could also make a fine Konoha shinobi one day, though that was something of a pipe dream for now. On the other hand, her status as a former high-ranking Akatsuki member could be a double-edged sword. As an S-ranked criminal, there would be no way of knowing whether she had something malicious planned, like espionage or full-on sabotage from within. There was also the matter of the council. Or rather, specific members of the council, that she would have to deal with. She grimaced internally at the thought of having to explain herself to Hamura and Koharu. Danzo would be another matter, and not one she wanted to think about. Tsunade sighed before speaking in a serious manner. Fine. She can stay and help you. But she'll need to undergo an examination by TNI before she's cleared. Konan breathed a sigh of relief while Naruto simply nodded with a small smile. Both bowed their heads, thanking the Hokage. A few housekeeping things. Firstly, unless you're with Kakashi, you'll be under ANBU observation at all times, and you won't be allowed to set foot outside the village save for the training grounds. Additionally, I expect you to tell me everything you know about the Akatsuki and its members. And I mean everything. If you don't, I have people who can extract that information out of you through various means, if need be. Konan swallowed at the prospect of being tortured for failure to comply. She nodded quickly before Tsunade continued. You'll be on probation for 3 months, provided you maintain good behavior, during which time you'll be evaluated by TNI to make sure you're not planning anything suspicious. After that time, we'll consider your future here, should you choose to stay for longer. The AIM woman nodded in understanding. I understand, Lady Hokage. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, she said with another bow of her head. Tsunade huffed. You're just lucky that brat has faith in you. Now come on, there's someone you should meet before your first psych evaluation. Naruto and Sasuke both raised an eyebrow at the Hokage's statement. The buxom woman thumbed the seal on the door to unlock it as Naruto replaced his sunglasses and Konan retrieved her folded cloak, both rising from their chairs to follow behind Tsunade and Sasuke. The door opened with a metallic groan, revealing an expectant Kakashi, whose nose was in the copy of Ika tactics that Naruto had given him. The masked Jonin shut his book and regarded the Hokage and his students before resting his eye on the head of blue hair beside Naruto. Kakashi normally wasn't one to be caught off guard, especially not when it came to beautiful women. Yet, for a fleeting moment, his stoic facade had cracked, and a light blush adorned the top of his visible cheek as his eye wandered over her and her azure hair. He cleared his throat, regaining his composure as he addressed his Hokage. Lady Tsunade. Is this who you wanted me to see? The twin-tailed blonde nodded, gesturing for Konan to step forward. Konan was the first to bow. Konan, she said plainly. Kakashi Hatake, he replied after hesitating for a moment, returning the bow. She will be assisting Naruto in honing his abilities, the Hokage stated. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, glancing between Tsunade and Naruto. The latter wore a sheepish expression, while the former gave him a look that told him she would explain in detail later. All right, brat. You're dismissed for now. I'll summon you again if I need you, Tsunade said before turning to Konan. Let's go. Konan nodded as she was led down the hallway by the Hokage, 2ANBU following her closely behind as Naruto watched after the group. He turned to Sasuke and his sensei. Well then, what do you say we get a little bit of training in? Kakashi asked, smiling beneath his mask. Naruto returned the smile with a quick nod before the trio set out once more for their training ground. The sun had crept just past its high point by the time the men of Team 7 had arrived at their training ground. Kakashi knew that he didn't have as much time as he would have liked to train Naruto, especially given the day's events, but he wanted to at least check on his progress. So, Naruto, how has the Shadow Clone Jutsu been coming? The Jonin prompted. Naruto gave a toothy grin before his hands flew into the cross-hand seal and 2 copies of himself appeared in puffs of smoke, each standing with their arms crossed. Kakashi studied the Shadow Clones, who were all standing straight with no sign of stumbling, humming in acknowledgement. Nice work. Can you see what they see? All 3 Narutos nodded before one spoke. You bet. It was a kinda hard at first, but I started with just 1 clone and worked my way up to 3, so now I can see. A kunai flying in from what would be his blind spot cut the statement short, but was easily dodged by the blonde shinobi. What my clones see? Check it out. The 2 copies of Naruto arranged themselves in a triangle with the original, all facing away from the center. This time Sasuke threw a shuriken, aiming for a Naruto that wouldn't see it coming, only for his target to duck as the weapon whizzed past. Said target turned and gave his sensei a foxy grin as his clones disappeared in clouds of smoke. Kakashi smiled beneath his mask at his blonde student. Very good. The next step from here would be to fight with this expanded field of vision, adding more clones later. Though, I wouldn't create too many at once unless you find some way to cut the links after a certain number. It could overload your senses if you have too many sets of eyes, the silver-haired Jonin explained sagely. Naruto scratched his cheek, considering the ramifications of having 50 or 100 shadow clones active with this new ability. There had to be a way to get his shadow clones to behave like before, rather than as a facsimile of Pain's bodies. I wonder. Maybe if you focus on making the clone's vision separate from yours, then that could cut the link? Sasuke offered. Naruto and Kakashi cupped their chins in thought before Kakashi nodded. That could work. Give it a shot, Naruto, the Jonin encouraged. Naruto clapped his hand against his fist, giving a nod before he formed the familiar hand seal. He focused on making the clones more independent of him, particularly on severing the link between his and the clone's eyes. A single shadow clone appeared in the usual plume of smoke. The original Naruto turned and examined his doppelganger, a smile stretching across his face. Naruto thrust a fist into the air, whooping with glee. Hell yeah! I did it! I cut the link! All I see is what I see! The shadow clone joined in on the raucous cheering, realizing that its sense of sight wasn't being intruded upon by his conjurer. Wanting to test the limits, Naruto threw his hands together and summoned 12 other shadow clones. The original Naruto cheered again at his success in maintaining the severed visual link. Finally! I have my shadow clones back. Now I just need to try the Rinnegan again. Naruto dispelled all but one clone. Just as he was getting into position to try and form the jutsu made famous by his father, Kakashi raised a hand to stop him. Naruto and his copy froze as their heads snapped to the jonin. Perplexed expressions plastered to their face. Kakashi responded in kind with his usual half-lidded gaze. What gives, sensei? The orange-clad ninja demanded as his shadow clone dispelled in a puff of smoke. Even Sasuke turned to Kakashi, his brow raised quizzically. While I fully support you testing to make sure you can still perform the Rinnegan, I think we ought to discuss today's events, along with how your training will proceed, the jonin stated. Naruto let out an exasperated sigh as he trudged closer to his sensei and his friend. Kakashi's eye crinkled in a smile before returning to its normal half-lidded state. While Lady Tsunade hasn't filled me in on the details of what that woman Konan, I think her name was, will be doing to assist you in honing your abilities, he began, forming air quotes with the last phrase. I plan to be present when she does so. I'm sure the Hokage will reinforce that when she briefs me on the conditions of her helping you. As far as your training goes, as I stated before, I'll continue helping you as much as I can to refine your chakra manipulation and control. I can also try to teach you 1 or 2 basic wind jutsu, but as far as your dojutsu goes, the most I can offer is advice as a Sharingan user. Once you feel you have better control of your shadow clones and that ability, I think spars to test that ability are in order, he finished, gesturing towards the Uchiha. The two nodded before Sasuke put a hand to his chin. Sensei, do you think I could check the Uchiha archives to see if there's anything that could help Naruto? The jonin considered Sasuke's request before nodding. I think that would be a great idea. You might want to consult Lady Tsunade first, as I'm not sure whether the archives are sealed or not. If you can get a hold of anything, I think it would be beneficial to the both of you, he said with a masked smile. Now, I really wish we could continue, but I'd better check in with the Hokage. Naruto, if you want, you can try to form the Rinnegan on your own, but be careful. We still don't know for sure if or how your Rinnegan will affect your ability to manipulate chakra, he finished. Don't worry, I'll make sure Fishcake here doesn't hurt himself, the Uchiha sneered. Naruto's eye twitched at the nickname. Kakashi chuckled at their antics. Let's meet here again tomorrow morning. Same time, 9 a.m. See you guys then. With a wave of his hand, he once again disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto and Sasuke both grumbled about their sensei's constant tardiness. Naruto quickly created a shadow clone, channeling chakra into his hand while the clone helped him shape it. A smile stretched across his whisker-marked face as a swirling ball of chakra appeared in his palm, stabilized by his shadow clone. Sasuke smiled inwardly at his friend's success thus far. It's a wonder he wasn't considered a prodigy back at the academy, he mused to himself. Naruto pumped more chakra into the swirling orb in an effort to increase its size. He felt it expand, just like he wanted. Without warning, he felt his control of the jutsu slip. His clone tried to hold the shape, but to no avail. Said clone was dispelled and Naruto was thrown onto his backside with a shriek as the ball of chakra exploded. Sasuke shielded his face from the shockwave before his brow furrowed and his head tilted to the side. The fuck was that? The blonde yelped. I had it. You saw. I had it, and it exploded. That's never happened before. Sasuke merely shrugged. Try again, maybe it was just some weirdness with your Rinnegan or something. Kakashi-sensei did mention that it could affect your manipulation, he offered as Naruto rose to his feet, grumbling as he dusted himself off. The orange-clad shinobi created another shadow clone that positioned itself next to him. He focused his chakra in his palm again, this time focusing even more intently on maintaining the shape. The familiar swirling blue ball appeared once more, and relief washed over the blonde. He added more chakra, increasing the size of the jutsu. The shadow clone was hellbent on keeping it stable, so much so that sweat beaded on its forehead. Sasuke watched with his Sharingan active to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. When he saw nothing unusual, his eyes returned to normal. Naruto smiled and laughed as he felt himself keeping control of the Rinnegan like he did before the Rinnegan came unto him. Naruto dispelled the clone as he charged forward, slamming the swirling ball of chakra into a tree. Rinnegan! He yelled as wood splintered and flew in a cone around him. By the time the destructive orb dissipated, the tree bore a swirl-shaped scar on its trunk. Sasuke walked over to inspect the damage, remembering the countless times he had heard Naruto slam it into various tree trunks around the training ground. A small smile tugged at the Uchiha's mouth, admiring how quickly he was adapting to his new circumstances in true Naruto fashion. Sasuke noticed the sun had crept further into the west, and sunset would be upon them soon. Yo, Blondie, let's go. The sun's gonna set soon, Sasuke called. Naruto turned on his heel, following his roommate. By the time they got back to the apartment, it would surely be time for dinner. Naruto felt his stomach growl as he thought of what Sasuke would likely make for them. He knew it probably wouldn't be ramen, but he had to admit, the Uchiha made some damn good miso soup. It made Naruto wonder just what else he could cook. The two friends-turned-roommates walked through the village, noting how quickly things were coming together. More buildings had been painted or been coated in stucco or plaster. Some were even covered in tile or concrete. The village was beginning to look like home again. They shared a comfortable silence as they entered their apartment, and cleaned themselves up before preparing dinner. Naruto, expecting miso soup, was surprised to smell what Sasuke was cooking, curry. The two set the table and sat down to eat after offering their gratitude for the meal. So, you gonna tell me how you know that woman from the Akatsuki? Sasuke probed, taking a bite of rice. Naruto sighed as he chewed on a bite of curry. Well, I met her when I found the guy who was controlling pain. Nagato? Naruto nodded. Yeah, Nagato. He told me the story of how he met Konan and this guy named Yahiko. It was kinda surreal in a way. What I mean surreal? The way he talked about them, it kinda reminded me of how we are with each other and Sakura, the blonde explained. We're not S-rank criminals though, Sasuke deadpanned. Naruto snorted. Of course not. But you get what I mean, right? Sasuke nodded as he chewed on a grape tomato. They became family to each other, you mean? Yeah, exactly, Naruto answered as he took a sip of tea. Sasuke eyed his roommate carefully. Hey, are you sure you want a former member of the Akatsuki around? It seems a little sketchy, even for us. Naruto sighed, meeting Sasuke's onyx gaze with his intense muted purple one. I know. But something tells me I should at least give her a chance. I doubt she would come all the way from Emigakure after the death of her best friend just to try and hit us from the inside. Besides, even if it was a covert op or something, Granny's got a nose that knows. Sasuke took another bite of curry, processing what his roommate had said. Naruto had a point. Unless you were unhinged like he had been at one point, coming all the way from another hidden village to attack one of the five greats by yourself was desperate at best. The Uchiha shrugged as he took a sip of tea. I guess you have a point. You're not exactly a bad judge of character either, so I'll trust your judgment on this one. Naruto smiled as he enjoyed more of the food Sasuke had made. You know, I'm not usually one for curry, or anything that isn't ramen, for that matter, Sasuke interrupted, making Naruto groan. Come on, man, I'm trying to compliment your cooking. Naruto feigned a hurt expression. Sasuke merely shrugged, chuckling. You know it's true. But thanks. I figured we would have something other than miso soup since we had it for dinner yesterday and breakfast this morning. Naruto nodded as he took another bite, savoring the moderately spiced curry. Wonder how Sakura's doing. Or even Haku and Ino, for that matter. I don't think I've seen them since before the attack, he wondered aloud. I'm sure they're alright. They're probably busy helping Sakura, Shizen, and Lady Tsunade with patients and setting up the hospital, Sasuke replied coolly. A sigh escaped the blonde. I wonder how Hinata's doing, he muttered. Sasuke stiffened slightly. I'm sure she's fine. Don't worry so much. She's not as helpless as before, you know. I know, it's just. I feel guilty. She put herself in harm's way and nearly died for my sake. Then there's the whole thing of her saying she loved me, he said with a far-off look in his purple eyes. Don't. Her actions were her own. You know any of us would have done the same thing, Sasuke said firmly. A small smile tugged at Naruto's mouth as he finished his curry, turning to the umebashi. He normally had sweet ones with honey, but he'd been meaning to try the sour variety. Hey Naruto. I was thinking of something. Naruto raised a brow and hummed as he chewed, finding the tartness to be surprisingly refreshing. I think I know a way we can find out more about your Rinnegan without having to wait for Lady Tsunade to let me into the Uchiha archives, Sasuke explained. Naruto regarded his roommate with an expectant look as he chewed on another umebashi. There's a place. It's considered sacred, and only those with Uchiha blood are allowed to set foot there. Naruto's face dropped. But that's a formality, more than anything. There are no blood seals or anything on the place. So technically anyone could go there. But well, it's in the Uchiha compound. Naruto stared at his friend. You want to take me to a place your clan considers sacred? But why? Like I said the other night, you're my brother, even if you weren't born in Uchiha or adopted by the Uchiha. If taking you to the Uchiha shrine will help, I see no reason not to, he said with a sense of finality. Naruto smiled. Thank you, Sasuke. Really. I'm honored you would take me there, he said with quiet sincerity. Sasuke waved his hand dismissively as he chewed on another grape tomato. Don't worry about it, you sap. It's the least I can do for you. Naruto chuckled as he dug back into his umebashi. He had to admit, the sour ones were good, and so was Sasuke's cooking. Maybe he could get used to not having ramen all the time. Konan sat on the bed in her cell, holding her knees to her chest. Her Akatsuki cloak sat folded on the foot of the bed. The only source of light was a single dangling light bulb in the center of the small stone cell. The cell, like the rest of the complex, had been carved out of the rock forming the cliff face which held the great stone faces. There was no way to tell what time it was. The sun didn't warm the rock this far underground, so it was always cold compared to outside. Sleep eluded her. She was exhausted, but her mind wouldn't quiet for even the briefest moment. Her evaluation was necessary, but she cursed the man known as Inoichi Yamanaka for invading her mind, for digging through her thoughts and memories. The scar-faced one with the bandana named Ibiki was no better. He had a cold presence about him that made her shudder, despite his polite tone at the time. To be treated as a prisoner was expected, but it still wasn't the most pleasant experience. But she had been through worse, as the Yamanaka had seen. Konan sighed as she rested her forehead against her knees. Flying all the way from AIM to Konoha had been more taxing than she had thought. Not that flying was particularly taxing in the first place, but flying for an extended period while avoiding being spotted after a bitter fight was tiring, to say the least. She had collapsed after she surrendered to the guards at the front gate, and was barely conscious as she was carried by Anbu to the interrogation room where she met Naruto. A sigh escaped her as she thought of the blonde-haired young man. Of all the people in the world, Nagato had chosen him to bear the Rinnegan. Her thoughts returned to the man she had fought on the lake surrounding Amigakure, the masked man that called himself Madara Uchiha. She had a feeling he would show himself, but when he told her the reason, her blood ran cold. Konan had little idea that he would come for Nagato's eyes, and in that moment she regarded her late friend with awe at his foresight. He must have known that the masked man's arrival would come to pass and must have known that giving Naruto his eyes was the best way to keep them safe. It was unexpected, to say the least. Even Konan, who was calculating by nature, hadn't considered that option. The azure-haired woman shut her eyes as she remembered her fight with the Uchiha after she refused to let him desecrate Nagato's body. He seemed untouchable. Every attack she threw had literally passed right through him. She had tried to sacrifice herself to kill him at first, but he had used a strange teleportation jutsu to warp most of the explosion away. Konan was unharmed, but part of his orange mask had broken. In that moment, she vowed to end the man and his darkness, declaring her loyalty to the good in the world, along with her apostasy from the current Akatsuki. Immediately after her declaration, she parted the lake that they stood upon, revealing a canyon of billions of sheets of paper bombs. 600 billion, to be exact. Konan was glad that she had revised the detonation system. Normally, detonating all the bombs would leave her exhausted from the sheer amount of chakra that it would take. Fortunately, she had found a way to light all the bombs using a system of chain reactions that cost a fraction of the chakra. Her lack of chakra exhaustion had let her fly away from AIM towards Konoha, certain that her opponent was nothing more than a scattering of soot in the lake surrounding Amigakure. She knew she would need to return to AIM before it fell into disarray, but she first needed to fulfill Nagato's wishes. Konan let out another sigh as she thought of her home. Her history in AIM was a troubled one, and she had become one of its protectors after Nagato eliminated Hanzo. After returning to bury her friends, however, she felt out of place. She was not God, as the people of AIM had come to know pain, and she was not God's angel either. She was Konan, a compassionate and empathetic woman who had suffered a traumatic childhood. She didn't feel like she could take up the mantle of leading AIM as Nagato had. She was just as calm and level-headed as Nagato had been, but she knew within herself that she couldn't be what AIM wanted her to be, much less what the war-torn village needed. She had done quite a bit of thinking during her journey to Konoha, and had wondered if she should just leave AIM to let it stand on its own 2 feet. Konoha was the primary aggressor when it came to all the wars that had used AIM as their battlegrounds. Maybe now she could advocate for recognizing AIM's sovereignty as a hidden village. But what future did she have in Konoha? What would happen once she exhausted her usefulness as an informant on the Akatsuki and their movements? What would happen once she helped Naruto as much as she knew how to? Would she decide to lead a civilian life or try to be a kunoichi? Would she even be allowed to be a shinobi again? The blue-haired woman laid down on the bed, her amber eyes staring at the stone ceiling, questions upon questions roiling in her head. Her thoughts eventually meandered back to Naruto. His chakra signature was unique, which was to be expected as the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. But there was something else to it besides the underlying influence of the beast, a benevolent warmth. His chakra wasn't like that of the masked man or of the other members of the new Akatsuki. It was neutral, peaceful, even. It reminded her of Nagato's and Yahiko's chakra in some ways. She could sense his determination when she first met him, and saw it in his purple eyes when she spoke to him in the interrogation room. She yawned as she rolled onto her side, tucking a wayward lock behind her ear. She plucked her paper rose from its perch, gazing into its petals as she cradled it in her hands. Konan knew she would fulfill Nagato's wish and help Naruto. Beyond that, she was uncertain, but she had a feeling that she should let AIM go. There wasn't much for her there aside from the corpses of her friends. Maybe she would return there, if only to set them up to stand on their own. She laid the paper rose next to her pillow as a dreamless sleep took her. In a surprising turn of events, Naruto was up before Sasuke this morning. Interestingly, the blonde ninja had no hankering for ramen this morning. He decided to make some toast with sweet bean jam, opting to slice a tomato for Sasuke after setting a kettle to heat for some tea. His roommate hated sweet things for whatever reason, which stood in stark contrast to Naruto's growing sweet tooth. The blonde swore he would get Sasuke to eat at least one sweet thing of his own free will, at least a semi-sweet skewer of dango. The kettle whistled as the toaster popped out 4 perfectly toasted slices of bread. Naruto set the tea on the table, letting it steep as he sliced a tomato before spreading the sweet bean jam on his toast. Sasuke made his way into the kitchen as Naruto was setting the plates down. The Uchiha gave a small yawn, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He examined the simple breakfast laid before him. Hell must have frozen over for there not to be instant ramen on the table, he quipped. Stuff it, Uchiha. Look, there's even tomatoes. I know for a fact you can't resist those, Sasuke grumbled, shooting the snickering blonde a dirty look as he sat down to offer his gratitude before digging in. Naruto only smiled before doing the same. He had to admit, the jam tasted good. It wasn't cloyingly sweet like he had expected, and it didn't taste like congealed red bean soup either. It even went well with the toast and tea. Sasuke was surprised that Naruto had taken it upon himself to slice a tomato just for him. He took it as a return of his own gesture of picking up soy sauce-flavored instant ramen the night of Naruto's awakening. So, you think that lady with the blue hair will show up? Sasuke queried. Naruto shrugged as he sipped his tea. Sasuke pondered as he took a bite of his tomato toast. Maybe Sensei will teach you Chidori or something. You're probably fast enough by now, and your Rinnegan gives you enhanced perception like our Sharingan. Maybe. It'll probably be a bitch and a half to learn since lightning isn't my primary affinity. True. But your shadow clones should make it at least a little easier, right? Naruto nodded as he chewed on another bite of toast. A moment of silence passed before Sasuke spoke again. Have you ever considered changing your wardrobe up a bit? Naruto froze, his teeth sunken into his second piece of toast, looking at his roommate like he had grown a second head. Oh, come on. You can't just wear bright orange forever, can you? That cloak you were wearing looked cool. Why not try and, I dunno, go for a look that suits it? Hey! Don't rag on the orange. It's my favorite color, you know. Plus, it looks good on me. It's my signature color. Naruto squawked, brandishing his half-bitten toast. Besides, your clothes haven't changed much, either. You still wear high-collared shirts. Matter of fact, the most that's changed is the fact you wear a skirt with that stupid rope around your waist. The high-collared shirts are an Uchiha thing and you know it, Whiskers. Also, it's not a skirt. And the rope at least looks cool, plus it holds my ninjato in place, Sasuke retorted. Besides, you have a powerful dojutsu, you're a sage, and you're a strong shinobi. Why not update your look to be a little more serious? Naruto took a bite out of the toast, considering his friend's suggestion. He had to admit, looking cooler or more intimidating would be nice. Especially since people tended to underestimate him from how he looked and acted. Plus, the sunglasses were kind of throwing his outfit off. They didn't really fit in with the orange and black tracksuit. I guess I could use a wardrobe update, the blonde grumbled. Maybe we can ask Ino and Sakura? They seem like they would know a thing or two about how to look good. You sure you're not just trying to hit on Sakura some more? Naruto nearly choked on the tea he was drinking as he blushed furiously. The fuck's that supposed to mean? I'm just, because girls are, and Sakura and Ino, you know what I mean. Sasuke threw his head back as he laughed. Don't sweat it, Blondie, I'm just screwing with you. But you do have a point, Ino especially has an eye for fashion. Maybe it's worth checking if they're free after training? Naruto nodded as his cheeks returned to their normal sun-kissed color. The two sat for a little while more before getting ready for the day. Sakura woke to the smell of coffee. She sat up in her bed, blearily eyeing the clock. Ino was up early, as always. The pink-haired kunoichi let out a yawn as she inwardly wondered how her roommate was able to get herself out of bed so early. She stood up and stretched before going through her morning routine. After hearing from Sasuke that he and Naruto were roommates, Sakura had mentioned it to Ino during a conversation, who in turn suggested that they move in together also. Sakura was surprised by her friend's idea, but she had agreed after giving it some thought. Up until now, Sakura and Ino were both living with their respective families. It was nice, comfortable even, but they both felt that they should take a step towards independence. Both of their families agreed after hearing that they would be rooming with each other's best friend, so there was very little by way of pushback. The two had grown accustomed to living with each other, which wasn't surprising to either, since they had been friends since their days in the academy. Sakura remembered her friendship with Ino fondly as she brushed her bubblegum pink locks. She kept her hair shoulder-length ever since the Chunin exams, and she rather liked it that way. Ino had mixed feelings about it at first, but it had grown on her, commenting once that it made her look cute. Sakura, of course, wasn't particularly concerned about her appearance as much as she was the practicality of having her hair short. Her practical line of thinking showed in her choice of clothing, as well. Whenever she was doing work at the hospital or just around the village, she stuck with rather comfortable clothes. Such was her ensemble of choice for today. A red top with cream-colored short sleeves that bore the Haruno crest on its back, and a navy blue pencil skirt that stopped above her knees. Her hair, unsecured by her headband, framed her face and hung just past her shoulders. Black knee-high sandals would complete her outfit. The medic regarded herself in the mirror. She wasn't the picture of feminine beauty like her roommate was, but she was pretty, she was strong, she was smart, and she had a good figure. She was never one for caking on makeup like civilians, and wore less makeup than Ino. For her, all that was needed was some mascara and a bit of eyeliner. Ino had tried to give her a makeover a few times, but she never felt like herself afterwards. Sakura was about to head over to the kitchen to have her cup of coffee when she remembered what was laying on top of her dresser, Naruto's sage cloak. She had found it after his bitter fight with pain. It had been damaged from the corrosive nature of the Ninetales chakra, but she was able to put her skills in sewing to good use and repair it with Ino's help. She tucked it under her arm as she went to meet Ino for breakfast. "Morning, Ino." The platinum blonde turned from preparing their eggs over rice. "Oh, good morning, Sakura," she returned with a smile, catching sight of the red and black cloak tucked under Sakura's arm. "You planning on giving it to him today?" Sakura nodded as she sat down. Ino set their food down, sliding a plate of 3 umeboshi over to the pink-haired kunoichi. Both offered their gratitude for the food before digging in. "Hey, Ino. I had an idea," Sakura started, earning a hum from her roommate. "You think one of these days we could go shopping with the boys?" "By boys, do you mean your boys or my boys?" "My boys. I think they're both due for a wardrobe update. And I was also kinda hoping you could help me pick some clothes, too," Sakura said sheepishly as she took a sip of her coffee. Ino let out an exaggerated sigh. "Forehead, I thought you'd never ask. You have no idea how much I've been dying to help you pick out clothes." Sakura's eye twitched ever so slightly at the implications behind her roommate's excitement. "My outfits aren't ugly by any means, pig. Your words, not mine. I just think you could stand to have some cuter outfits for when you're not wearing your shinobi gear. Come to think of it, you could even get some cuter shinobi gear." "My outfits are cute," Sakura squawked. "I never said they weren't. I just said you could stand to have some cuter outfits," Ino corrected. "You know, cute enough to impress Sasuke," she said as she waggled her eyebrows. A light blush adorned Sakura's cheeks. "That's not why I want other outfits, pig," she muttered. While it was true that Sakura still held on to her childhood crush, she wasn't ignorant to the possibility of others stealing her heart. The only thing was that nobody had done so, at least not yet. "Maybe I just want to look as pretty as you do." The pink-haired kunoichi took another sip of coffee. Ino regarded her friend with a smile. "Well, aren't you sweet?" "Don't worry, I was just teasing. Truth be told, I think Naruto needs more help than Sasuke. How many times have we both told him that orange is not a color that ninja wear?" Sakura snorted. "Too many to count, that's for sure." "You think Sasuke would be able to convince him to change things up?" "Knowing him, just maybe. I think once he sees this cloak, the gears might start turning. Naruto might be a doofus sometimes, but he's not stupid." Ino nodded as she chewed some of her rice. "Hard to believe he's the same one we used to make fun of, isn't it?" "He's definitely changed, especially after that trip he took. He's a bit more mature but still a blockhead. But there's something about him that makes you wonder how much he's really capable of." Sakura had been one of the people who had poked fun at Naruto for his lack of academic proficiency and his overall goofiness. Once everyone at the academy had found out he and Sasuke were best friends, even Naruto had earned a fan club. The cherry on top was when he and Sasuke had painted the great stone faces. While some were in complete shock that the Sasuke Uchiha was in league with the village prankster, the fangirls had all squealed about how he and Naruto were so cunning and how their senses of humor were so similar. She cringed at the memory of her and Ino being among those fangirls. Sakura was pulled out of her reminiscing by Ino. "Well, I think we'd better get going. Lady Tsunade will probably have a lot for us to do today now that the hospital is in working condition." Sakura nodded as they both set out to meet with their master. As always, Kakashi was late. Naruto and Sasuke were both sprawled out on the grass, watching clouds pass over them in silence. They could see why Shikamaru enjoyed this so much. It was quite relaxing. Sasuke had sworn he heard snoring coming from Naruto and poked him to make sure he was conscious. Sure enough, he had dozed off and grumbled when Sasuke woke him up. Their cloud watching was interrupted by dampened footsteps in the grass. The two Chunin rose to their feet in unison and were greeted by their sensei and a familiar head of blue hair. Naruto examined the newcomers. "Kakashi-sensei and Konan? What are you doing here?" Sasuke's face was twisted in puzzlement, eyeing the woman who was clad in her Akatsuki cloak. "And why are you wearing that cloak?" "Konan is going to be helping you with your Rinnegan starting today," Kakashi began. "As for why I'm wearing this cloak, it's simply because these are the only clothes I have for now. I don't want to be wearing this any more than you want to see it, but until I get others, this is what I have," Konan finished. Naruto and Sasuke studied the woman, looking for any hint of deceptive body language. They sighed and nodded when they found none. "Now then, Naruto, why don't you bring Konan up to speed on your progress so far?" Kakashi suggested. His blonde student gave a quick nod before he explained his newfound ability with his shadow clones to an attentive Konan. Naruto hesitated for a moment, debating whether he should mention what had happened when he first tried to form the Rinnegan. He figured it couldn't hurt. Kakashi was his sensei, after all. "There was one more thing that happened that was, kinda weird," he started, earning raised eyebrows from both Kakashi and Konan. Naruto cleared his throat. "Well, when I tried the Rinnegan yesterday, it sort of exploded the first time." Kakashi was about to speak when Konan beat him to it. What exactly do you mean exploded? She questioned, her eyebrows still cocked upwards. Well, I made a small Rinnegan, and as soon as I added some chakra to make it bigger, I felt my control slip, and it blew up. It dispelled my clone and knocked me onto my butt. He rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Kakashi stepped forward with a quizzical look in his eye. I know this isn't the most ideal course of action, but do you think you could replicate what happened? Naruto frowned before nodding and creating a single shadow clone. He formed a small Rinnegan at first, adding more chakra to increase the size slightly but not focusing as hard as he did yesterday. His control slipped, and sure enough, the spinning orb exploded. The shadow clone was dispelled, and Naruto was once again knocked onto his rear as everyone shielded their faces from the shockwave. Konan peered down at Naruto, her face set in her ever-stoic expression. The Rinnegan bearer rose to his feet, swearing he saw a small glint in the woman's eye. Kakashi meandered closer to where Konan and Naruto stood, with Sasuke following close behind. Kakashi was about to ask Konan for her input when he saw her tense. Someone's here, the AIM woman muttered. The men of Team 7 put their heads on a swivel, scanning for anyone who could be watching. Hey, look! Naruto pointed at a head of bubblegum pink hair making their way towards them. They saw Sakura freeze and start running full speed. Kakashi quickly flickered in front of her, causing her to skid to a stop. The trio that was left heard the pink-haired Kunoichi shrieking about Konan's Akatsuki cloak, interspersed with Kakashi's calm voice explaining why she was here. Konan studied the grass at her feet as the silver-haired Jonin brought his female student up to speed. Sakura glared at the former Akatsuki member as she walked past her. After greeting Sasuke, Sakura presented a folded article of clothing to her blonde-haired teammate. Naruto cocked his head to the side. Thanks, Sakura. But what is it exactly? Take it and find out, dummy. Naruto took the red square and watched it unfurl into the sage cloak he thought he had lost. It was the same red with black flames adorning the bottom, except now the kanji 4 oil was emblazoned on the back. A face-splitting smile took over his face. No way! You found it! And you fixed it? This is amazing! Thank you so much, Sakura. Sakura found herself on the receiving end of a crushing embrace. She returned the hug, a light blush painted on her cheeks. Naruto always gave the best, warmest hugs of anyone she knew. It's no problem, Naruto. I figured you'd want it since you're a sage now and all, she said as Naruto released her, slipping into the cloak. Now if only we could do something about the orange, she mused to herself. Wait a second, aren't you supposed to be helping Lady Tsunade? Sasuke asked. Well, I was helping her out today, but she sent me home early since I took care of a lot of things yesterday with Shizen. She even sent Ino and Haku home early. Their exchange was cut short by Kakashi clearing his throat. As good as that cloak looks on Naruto, what say we get back to making him an even stronger sage? He asked rhetorically with one of his signature masked smiles. The trio nodded sheepishly as Kakashi gestured to Konan, signaling for her to give her input on Naruto's peculiar Rinnegan. From what I can tell, Naruto let one of the Rinnegan's abilities slip when he first tried to perform the Rinnegan. All heads snapped to the blue-haired woman, wide eyes staring at her and Naruto. And which ability would that be? Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow. Before I answer that, I should probably explain something about Nagato and how he used his pain bodies, Konan began. Kakashi considered the woman's offer before nodding. If you remember, Nagato, or Pain, had 6 bodies. Each one with different sets of abilities, corresponding to what are known as pads: Tendo, Shirato, Ninjendo, Chikashoto, Gakido, and Jigakudo. The body that you fought before you found my paper tree was Tendo, which was his primary and most favored. He used Yahiko's body for that one, she finished sadly. Naruto sighed inwardly at the mention of her departed friend. He couldn't help but feel some amount of pity for her losing both of her closest people. Tendo has the ability to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces, Konan began before Kakashi chimed in, like how he pushed and pulled his opponents away with that unseen force. Konan nodded. Exactly. Shirato is a weapon and armor-centered path, and could also grow 4 extra arms and 2 additional faces, further enhancing its field of vision. Ninjendo, she shuddered at the mention of its name. It always disturbed me the most. It lets you read the mind of anyone whose head or chest you touch, similar to the Yamanaka's abilities. What curdles my blood is the fact that Ninjendo must literally pull someone's soul from their body to read the target's mind. A collective gasp emerged from the 3 Chunin. Konan shivered once more before she continued. Chikashoto had the ability to summon various creatures without the need for a summoning contract. Gakido can absorb chakra in any form, including elemental ninjutsu or ninjutsu that use pure chakra like your Rinnegan. Konan paused as she took a moment to consider her next words. The last one is Jigakudo. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure of its full abilities aside from its ability to interrogate and restore using the King of Hell. Team 7 collectively flinched. Did you just say the King of Hell? Sasuke asked incredulously. Konan simply nodded as a moment of pregnant silence passed before Naruto spoke up. Wait. Nagato had 6 bodies to control the 6 paths or whatever they're called, right? Does that mean that I need to have 6 bodies or something to be able to use all those abilities? His teammates nodded, wondering the same thing. Not necessarily. Nagato used the bodies because he was crippled and in relatively poor health, she began. Naruto nodded, remembering how Nagato was nearly skin and bone when he had met him. Someone who was in better condition, like yourself, could utilize all the abilities of each path without the need for separate bodies or clones. Naruto scratched his cheek, processing the information. It was quite a bit to take in. He never figured that each of the abilities of the bodies of pain were all from the Rinnegan. Not only that, but because he was in better physical condition, Naruto would have access to the abilities of each of the paths, with time and training. He shuddered at the thought of sprouting extra arms and extra faces. The blonde Rinnegan bearer turned his attention back to Konan as she spoke. As far as what happened with your Rinnegan, it seems as though you unconsciously let loose an ability belonging to Tendo. It's called Shinra Tensei. Naruto cocked his head. Shinra Tensei? What exactly does it do? It's a technique that manipulates repulsive forces. It can be used on people or objects, meaning it can repel things like incoming kunai or shuriken, or even push someone back who is charging you. The blonde ninja cupped his chin, his face contorted into an exaggeratedly pensive expression. So how do I do it? Everyone's ears perked up as Konan began. From what Nagato told me, it's like flaring your chakra to dispel a genjutsu. Except instead of just flaring it like a gust of wind, you focus it within yourself before you force it out. Try it. Naruto nodded, his hands forming the ram's seal as he focused on gathering and concentrating his chakra. He was never very good at dispelling genjutsu, but since this was different, he figured he might have a better chance at getting it down. He felt the chakra reach a point that it fought against him, and he forced it out of himself. As he did, he felt the air pulse all around him. It was weak, but it was something. He looked to catch his team and Konan lowering their hands from shielding themselves. Sasuke's Sharingan had activated, while Sakura's face was one of surprise. Kakashi, as usual, maintained his half-lidded look, while Konan looked just as passive. Not bad. You catch on quick, Konan remarked. The power behind it is dependent upon how much chakra you pour into it, and how much you focus. Try it again, but put more force behind it. As she finished, she gestured for everyone to get back. Naruto nodded before gathering his chakra again. He molded more, trying to keep it contained, fighting the feeling of it wanting to burst out. Just as he couldn't hold it, he forced the chakra outward, extending his open palm. Shinra Tensei. This time he felt more than just a pulse. This time he felt the same unseen force that Kakashi had mentioned radiate outwards all around him. After he felt it dissipate, he turned to see his audience recovering from the shockwave, shielding their faces with their arms. Konan walked toward Naruto. Very good. A couple of things to keep in mind. As you likely remember, there's a minimum 5-second interval between uses. The more power behind Shinra Tensei, the longer you'll need to wait before you can use it again. Additionally, with training you'll be able to perform it quicker, and without the use of hand seals. Naruto gave a single, quick nod, his jaw set in determination. Kakashi stepped forward, nodding in agreement with Naruto's blue-haired instructor. Given your training technique using shadow clones, I think you'll get the hang of this in no time. Konan turned and eyed the Jonin. Training technique? Shadow clones? Naruto spoke up, gesturing towards his sensei. Kakashi-sensei taught me a way to learn things faster using shadow clones. Basically, every time a shadow clone dispels, I get its memories, so if I set a bunch of shadow clones to practice a jutsu like Shinra Tensei, Konan put the pieces together. All the experience the clones get from practicing the jutsu comes back to you once you dispel them, she finished. She nodded slowly, turning back to the silver-haired Jonin. I'd heard of your prowess as a ninja, Mr. Hataki, but I must admit you seem to be a fine teacher if you helped him develop a training method that efficient, she said evenly. A light blush once again dusted Kakashi's visible cheek before he regained his composure. Naruto looked at Konan with an expectantly. She created a paper clone before she spoke. Now, before you start practicing with shadow clones, I want you to try knocking my paper clone back. It doesn't need to be spectacular since we're just getting started, but try to knock it off its feet. Naruto nodded as his two instructors stepped back once again. They and Naruto's teammates watched, the air thick with anticipation. The paper clone stood unmoving as Naruto closed his eyes. This time, he tried focusing and molding his chakra without using a hand seal. He felt the familiar sensation of the chakra wanting to burst out as he added more. The dam was about to break, and he opened his eyes and raised an open hand towards the paper clone, forcing the chakra outwards with a shout. Shinra Tensei! For a split second, there was a deafening silence. Naruto felt the unseen force radiate outwards from him once again, but it felt even stronger this time. He watched as the paper clone was sent flying back at least 20 feet, landing on its back. Naruto took a deep breath as he looked at his trembling right hand. A smile crept its way onto his face. His head snapped back up as the paper clone dissolved into individual sheets. Said sheets returned to Konan, who was making her way towards him, Kakashi and his teammates in tow. Sasuke and Sakura both wore expressions of awe, while Kakashi and Konan retained their stoicism. A moment of silence passed as everyone was left speechless after what they had just seen. Konan found her voice first, speaking quietly and with a hint of awe. Naruto, as you might have guessed, I was with Nagato when he discovered and honed his abilities. He was smart, and a very quick learner, but even he took longer than you to perform Shinra Tensei at the level you just did.